Good afternoon and welcome to the planning meeting here today. I'm Councillor Gary Marsh, I'm the chairman of the meeting, and to my left is Councillor Kennedy, my vice chairman. To my right is Steve Ashdown, head of development management. To his right is Paula Slim, who's the chief legal officer, and to her right is Stuart Malcolm, who is a senior planning officer. In the two corners we have members from Democratic Services who should be taking the minutes and manipulating us, and in front of me are the members of the committee. Now, before I start, we have a really big agenda tonight, as you know, some 300 plus pages. So can we keep what we've got to say succinct? You are allowed, I'm not going to try and stifle any debate, you can have whatever you want to say, but normally I've been a bit lax and allowed you to come back on more than one occasion. So if you can't say it in one go, or perhaps the second go, I can't allow you to say anything in the third go. Otherwise, we could be here till midnight, and I don't think that anybody wants to do any of that. So, item 1 is to note any substitutes. I do not have any. Item 2 is to receive apologies for absence. I have Councillor Hussain, who contacted me direct. He is not well. Item 3, to receive declarations of interest from any member in respect of any matter on the agenda. Councillor Henwood.
Our declaration, I will not participate in voting on Woodfield House, item number 11.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bashir.
And same here with the Turners Mule one.
Okay, and Councillor Casella.
I am predetermined on item 8, Walnut Marches. It was debated at our parish council and we voted against it.
Okay. Now, just for the members of the public and on YouTube, the reason the three members made that declaration because they voted in a different venue, different forum, and therefore it could be seen as they are being predetermined if they vote again here tonight. They have been given, everybody's been given information. If you are a member of a planning committee elsewhere, just don't vote if you think it's going to come to the planning committee. Thank you. Item 4, as I wasn't here, I'm going to agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 7th of November. Is that agreed? Agreed. I'm going to get my vice chairman to sign the minutes. He took part as the chairman of the meeting.
Thanks, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Item 5 is considering the items the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none, so we're here for the substantive part of the afternoon. Item 6 is Barn Cottage Pavilion, Barn Cottage Lane in Haywards Heath. And Steve, this is you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just draw members' attention first of all to the update sheet that's in front of them. Just a couple of things on this one. We've had a consultation response from Southern Water, which is set out in full there for you. And please note 2 additional conditions that we're suggesting. The first one is in relation to external materials, and the second one relates to surface water and foul drainage details. So, planning permission is sought for the erection of a mixed-use community building. Which is shown here in red, which is adjacent to the existing Barn Cottage Pavilion. So here's the existing pavilion, here's the proposed community building.
Hang on a second, Steve. They're not playing. They did come up briefly. I think we've all got other paper reports. We've got it on. It's just for the members of the public; they can't see what we're going to be talking about. We have got the location, so I think you just have to carry on and wing it, as they say.
Okay, fine. So this is for a proposed mixed-use building, a community building on an existing open green space which has a pavilion. The reason it's before you is because it's MSDC owned. As set out in the report, there has been extensive history on the site where there has been previous approvals for a community building. The previous permission wasn't implemented in time, hence why they've had to come back in with a further application. In terms of the overall design of the building, it is similar in terms of scale and design to that that's been previously approved. The only main changes are set out in para 2.5 of your report, which essentially relate to the provision of PV panels to the roof and an air source heat pump to one of the elevations. So having regard for the assessment that's in front of you, it's considered that the application will provide an improved community facility, be acceptable in design and highway terms, and acceptable in all other ways. It's considered that the application complies with the development plan, and as such is recommended for approval, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. We do have a public speaker. It's Councillor Rees. She's the local ward councillor, and for members of the committee, you know that I don't stop ward councillors speaking more than 2 minutes. They can speak as long as they like, but she is aware we have a big agenda. So, Councillor Rees, just got to press your button. That's it. And away you go.
Hey, thank you, Chair. I am the district councillor, or a district councillor for Bentswood, as explained, and don't worry, I won't be long. I was very pleased to see that this particular planning application has been recommended for permission, and would just like to add a few brief words of support for its approval. When I became a district councillor for Bentswood last year, I quickly realised how strong a sense of community there is. This is despite, unlike in Ashenground or Franklands, it lacks a hireable space of any size for groups to get together. The plan to rectify this has been in the pipeline for longer than I've been a councillor, so many of you may already be familiar with the journey to reach this point, particularly those of you who, like the Scouts and the Bentswood Hub, have been patiently and innovatively making do with either very tired or very cramped alternative facilities. In practical terms, the plans and models reveal an attractive modern building encompassing the best affordable technology to be sustainable and to minimise any negative impact on the environment. This will provide an accessible, flexible building to host the community, pretty much from cradle to old age, not the grave. The plan includes use by the nursery right up to Sunday lunches for the elderly. In between, it will be in use by Scouts and the Bentswood Hub for various groups, including the community food larder. Its location in the heart of Bentswood, near to bus stops, the town's football club and the Scrace Valley Nature Reserve is ideal. The application you have before you, though, is so much more than a convenient building. It is the result of extensive consideration, consultation, dedication and pure passion by residents who care about their neighbourhood and their neighbours and the future of both. It has, for many reasons, been a long time coming, so I commend this development to you as somewhere that can nurture this generation and the next and help Haywards Heath to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. As you heard, that it's only here because it's on our land. We have given this plan permission. It just lapsed, unfortunately. So, do members wish to debate it? Councillor Henwood, do you wish to say anything?
Yes, please. I have a query. The environmental health officer on page 39, he queries about, she would prefer more details about the usage, and insofar as noise in particular and the effect upon the amenities of the residents. And we now know there's going to be an air source heat pump, which I commend, but of course that makes noise. So I wonder, Chairman, have there been any further details about actual usage that will be at this building? I'm in favour of it, but of course if it's noise and odour impacts upon the local residents, any more information? That's a query of the Environmental Protection Officer, page 39.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. So in terms of controlling the use of the building,
Yeah.
you have condition 8, which relates to noise. So that covers plant noise, the air source heat pump.
Okay.
And the air source heat pump is located on the northern elevation, which is the elevation between which faces the other existing building. So it's
Okay.
not facing
Residents, okay.
existing residential properties. The condition 3 details or controls the timings that the building can be used for. So that's between 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And condition 4 deals with deliveries. So any deliveries to the uses within that building are controlled between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock on a Saturday. So you know, those are the conditions recommended based on the information that we have. And you need to bear in mind as well, this is an application which follows on from 2 previous approvals. So you know, that there's the amount of information is similar to what we've had previously, and we've got the similar conditions to what controlled the previous permissions as well. So we're content there is no significant harm.
I think you gave planning permission last time. No, you're not. Councillor Cherry.
Yes, thank you, councillor. As it's going to be mixed use, the hall in question, I couldn't find any confirmation in the report as to what type of floor was going to be installed, because obviously if you're going to have fitness classes, dance, as well as the nursery, you would need an appropriate floor for that mixed use, i.e. I think it's a sprung floor. And I wondered if you had any, could confirm, because obviously if it's not a suitable floor, then it's going to restrict the amount of mixed use that will be able to take place in that hall.
Good question, just taking a look. The reason we're having to check it is that the officer cannot make it today, and Steve is taking over this presenting, so he's having to look through what it is, that's why. Normally he's 100% more efficient.
I'm just having a look at the drawing to see whether there's anything on the drawing. I can't see on the drawing, it doesn't confirm what type of floor it will be. But obviously, one would hope, as I say, this has been in the planning for some time. It's at least the third iteration. So you know, they should be fully aware of what they need in order to put the, you know, in terms of the uses that they're looking to put in there.
Floorboards.
It does look like floorboards, but
We can't guarantee it.
yeah. So you know, obviously, and you know, I know that they're keen to crack on in terms of the development, start it. So you know, we can only assume that they, you know, in terms of the specification, it's what they want in order to facilitate the uses that they want to put in there.
Right, I wondered if it could be flagged up. Just,
Well, I think
you know,
also as
'cause
well,
it obviously
it's
will
not-
restrict its use.
It shouldn't really be a planning reason, the floor,
Yeah,
would
it's
it?
just
It'd be building regs, wouldn't it, more than?
It's more to do with their, you know, with the spec in terms of what they, you know, in terms of their design spec, in terms of what uses they want to put in there, and their design a building appropriately. So it certainly doesn't fall into planning, and it wouldn't fall into building regulations. Okay. It's the spec which they've set out at that particular time in the design of the building to facilitate the uses they'd like to put in there.
I think the ward councillor said scouts are going to go in there. I don't think they're going to be dancing.
Oh, you never know.
I haven't been an ex-scout leader myself.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation for approval. Can I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll be happy to second that.
Right, okay, so can we vote in our normal way? Green if you approve, red if you don't approve, and yellow if you, I've got everybody, that has been approved, thank you. Go and tell your residents that it's been approved. Thank you. Oh, sorry, what I forgot to mention, plus the 2 additional conditions that was highlighted in the update sheet. Thank you. Right. Right, while they're playing around with the computers, item 7 is DM 233105, land off Turners Mill Road, Haywards Heath. And when, Stuart's ready?
I'm ready.
It's the computer is nothing altogether.
Unfortunately. So
Okay.
if you're happy for me to
Yep.
carry on,
Same as before, all the members of the committee have actually got a plan where it actually is located, so we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks. I'll just draw members' attention to the update sheet, first of all, if I may. We've had one additional representation since the report was published, and that was actually a video showing some rainwater coming down the access road. And I have actually just this afternoon had one more representation, which obviously doesn't make the update sheet itself, but I can verbally update members, and that was just one further representation from someone who's objected before, basically reiterating their previous comments. In terms of any other updates, the only one we've got before you is a suggested amendment to condition 32 within Appendix A. And that is just to make clear what classes in the GDPO are being referred to when permitted development rights are withdrawn through that condition. Right, still no presentation. I had to try to draw that out a bit, but okay, well, I'll do my best to try and sort of describe the proposals, obviously, without the images. So the application site is the far northern part of the Haywards Heath College site, which is located on Highlands Road in Haywards Heath. The site measures just over 0.5 hectares in area and is currently fenced off from the rest of the college land, given it's currently unused land and has been for some period of time. The site occupies a sustainable location within the defined built-up area of Haywards Heath. So although the college land is located to the south, there are a number of residential properties that border the site. The adjoining residential properties are located on Penland Road to the west, Penland Close to the north, Turners Mill Close to the northeast, and Turners Mill Road to the southeast. One of the characteristics of the site is that the application site is generally on higher ground than those surrounding houses I've just mentioned a moment ago. So I did have an aerial image of the site, which it won't be obvious from the plan that's in the report, but it showed the extent of the previous college
Do you
development.
want to just wait a second? We've got one of our technicians, hopefully he's going to use a... Oh, nearly.
Oh, okay, there.
Yeah. Well, I think today you can't, can you? Yeah, they think they might have fair share for a crack, especially if it was music. Hang on a sec. Please forgive us.
It's not seen that
I
at
think I'll
all.
try and desk read it. Just currently suspend the meeting for a few minutes while we try and get it, because it's not fair on the members of the public to, they're not having a fair crack at it because they can't see what we're talking about. Is that a reboot you just done? He's going to tell me that YouTube aren't working now. Yeah, we're okay. Right, Stuart, could you start the whole lot again, please? I think it's
Yeah.
only fair that we start the
Yeah,
thing again.
that's absolutely fine. Yeah, you can hear the first section again. Right, so second time lucky. The application site is the far northern part of Hayward Heath College site, which is on Harlands Road in Hayward Heath. The site, as indicated by the red line on the plan, measures just over 0.5 hectares in area. It's currently fenced off from the rest of the college land, given it is currently unused. The site occupies a sustainable location within the defined built-up area. So although the college land is located here to the south, there are a number of residential properties that border the rest of the site. These adjoining residential properties are located on Penland Road to the west, Penland Close to the north, Turner's Mill Close to the northeast, and Turner's Mill Road further to the southeast. So one of the characteristics of the site, as will be shown on the site sections in a moment, is that the application site is generally on higher ground than the surrounding houses. So this image shows the extent of the previous college development on the site, which occupied the land before demolition took place around 7 years ago. Also shown on this plan is the vehicular access, which currently serves the college car park, which is located here. And this leads directly down onto Turner's Mill Road. As members will see in the photo shortly, the site is currently largely grassed, although some concrete-based remnants from the previous development still occupy the site. So yeah, just to reiterate, this is a previous aerial image that doesn't reflect what's currently on the ground at the moment. So given the historic use and the built form here, the site is considered to be previously developed land, and that is one of the factors that weighs in favour of supporting the scheme in principle. The principle of the proposal, particularly around the loss of the educational community use of the land, subject of the application, is discussed in detail in the report from paragraph 12.2 up to paragraph 12.18. Officers accept that the application site as no longer being viable for continued educational use, and it is accepted that there is adequate provision in the immediate locality so that the impact of the loss of part of the college land is acceptable. And that, sort of, when I say the immediate vicinity, it's obviously it's part of the existing college building premises at the moment. As such, officers consider that 2 of the exceptions criteria from policy DP25 are met, and to be policy compliant, only 1 of those exceptions needs to be met. As a result of all this, the principle of the proposal is therefore considered acceptable. So in terms of the specifics about the proposal before members today, the application seeks consent to construct 16 residential units on the site. In terms of the dwelling mix, there are to be 4 affordable units, which are 1 and 2 bed units located in this area here, central section. And then the remaining 12 units are all market units and will be 3 and 4 bed properties. So this layout shows most of the dwellings sited north of the access road. It's located centrally here, and they follow a broadly curved shape fronting onto the central cul-de-sac. To the south of the access road, the remaining dwellings comprising what is a small terrace of 2 houses and 2 maisonettes are proposed, and like I said a moment ago, the affordable units. So 30 car parking spaces are proposed for the 16 units, which meets with West Sussex parking standards and is acceptable to officers in this sustainable location. The existing access point into the college site off Turners Mill Road will be utilised to create the permanent access to the site. This will be for pedestrians as well as the sole vehicular access, and a condition will secure the delivery of acceptable access arrangements to meet the requirements of West Sussex County Council. The Highways Authority do, though, raise no objection to the proposals, and further conditions are set out in Appendix A, securing a construction management plan, the car and cycle parking, and a travel plan statement. In terms of the drainage proposals, the applicant's submitted strategy shows a proposal that would capture rain landing on all the hard surfaces of the development, so that's the roofs, driveways, etc., store it in large underground tanks before slowly releasing this water into the public sewer system. This will ensure that any existing drainage runoff into the lower surrounding gardens will not be made any worse as a result of the development, as much of the rain that does fall on the application site will now be captured and directed away from those neighbouring gardens. This next image gives a bit more detail on the lie of the land and shows the neighbouring residents being at a lower level. So I'm particularly glad the presentation's working here now, because it really does give an accurate depiction of, you've got 3 sections here across the site. The top image and the bottom image show both a broadly sort of north-south section through the site. That's these 2 sections here on the smaller inset plan, and they show the relationship between the site and the Penland Close properties and the Turners Mill Close properties, which are located to the north. As you can see here, they're shown to be at a lower level. Then the middle image shows a broadly west-east section. That's the lengthways section here in the small inset. And this shows the properties on Penland Road to the west and those houses to the east on Turners Mill Road, both of which are at a lower level than the application site. It's worth pointing out, however, that the full level details will be a requirement of a condition as set out in Appendix A. Got some of the elevations for you now, these being units 1 to 4 on the top row. They're the central properties here. And in isolation here, that's plot number 16, which is located to the east of the site. So the dwellings, all the dwellings, that is, across the site are sort of 2 or 2.5 stories with pitched roofs, and the material palette includes facing brick, hanging clay tiles and roof tiles, although full details are to be reserved by condition. Members will have noted from the report that the urban designer is supportive of the scheme. Some detailed design issues are, however, reserved by condition, but overall the development is considered to comply with the design policies of the development plan. So we've got some more elevations now, and this is, or these are, I should say, units 5, 6 and 7 on the top line. And these are the units located on the far western side of the site, and below that, units 8 and 9, which are sort of just round the corner from units 5 and 6 towards the northwestern side of the site. So the impact on residential amenity is obviously one of the key issues to assess with this application, and there's a detailed analysis of this impact on paragraphs, or within paragraphs 12.45 to 12.66 of the report. In this location, as set out at para 12.57 of the report, plots 6 and 7, which are these two here, so it's quite a small inset, but it's those ones there. These are shown to be slightly less than a minimum 21 metre distance that is often applied as a suitable separation between properties to ensure adequate overlooking for the neighbouring property, that is. This is in regard to, and that separation distance, I should say, is in regard to 36 Penland Road, which is the nearest of the neighbouring properties in this location. So in this case, however, there is a degree of obliqueness to the angle of that relationship, and together with the fact that the shortfall is only marginal, and also because of some degree of overlooking is not an uncommon situation within a built-up area, officers do not consider the proposed relationship here would constitute significant harm, that obviously being the test set out in the development plan.
If it goes off again, I'm going to have to ask my vice chair to do the same.
Okay.
Forgive me.
Hopefully I don't have to start again, but I'll carry on. So units, this next slide, this is, we've got units 10 to 13 on the top image here, and units 14 to 15 as shown below. And these are the properties along the northern boundary as shown on the smaller insets here. So here the relationship between the units and the neighbouring houses to the north on Penland Close and Turner's Mill Close is down to approximately 15 metres in places, and that's the shortest separation distance there. To address this, the applicant has designed plots 10 to 16 in a way that the only windows on the first floor in the north elevation are bathroom windows, and that's as shown up here at the first floor. So just one bathroom window in each of the north elevations of these properties. So these bathroom windows can be conditioned to be fitted with obscured glazing and to be top vent opening only, this way ensuring that overlooking cannot occur from the first floor of the development. With such a condition in place, coupled with a further condition removing permitted development rights, and that's what I touched on when I was referring members to the update sheet about the particular classes that are referred to, will ensure that officers are satisfied that significant harm to residential amenity, which again is quite a high threshold as set out within the development plan, has not been demonstrated in this case. In terms of the landscaping, members will have noted from the report that in terms of tree loss, the proposal includes the removal of one Category B tree and 4 individual trees and one group falling within Category C. The applicant's submissions, as shown by the planting strategy, that's the image in front of you, indicate that there will be 71 new trees to compensate for that loss, details of which will all be reserved by condition. Part of the new planting includes a new community orchard and growing area, which is these areas to the eastern side of the site, and these will be subject of a management condition, details of which will need to be agreed by officers. Although biodiversity net gain is not mandatory for this development, it was submitted before those provisions came into force. A number of ecological enhancements are being secured, as set out in paragraph 12.80 of the report. These include native and wildlife-friendly planting and various bird boxes and bat boxes across the site. And then in terms of sustainability, the applicant will need to adhere to their submitted energy statement, which includes the provision of air source heat pumps for each of the new units. So I'll finish with a few images of the site. This first image is looking east within the site to the rear of the Turners Mill Close properties. This is an image from pretty much the same spot, I guess, but looking in the opposite direction, so to the west, and this, I think this photo helps indicate the change levels within the site that I've been highlighting to members. This photo again is from broadly the same position, but just showing, again looking west, but slightly more orientated to the southwest, so you can see the northern edge of the college building to the left-hand side there. This is another photo at the far western end of the site, again looking west with the neighbouring properties at a lower ground beyond. Photo 5, this is a photo along the northern boundary of sort of the northwestern corner of the site. Looking north, this is towards the back end of one of the Penland Close properties. Got another view looking along the northern boundary towards the rear of the Penland Close properties again, as is this image, photo 7, and you can see that the Penland Close properties, these are their roofs beyond the boundary vegetation there. I did visit a couple of the neighbours to help inform the officer assessment of this application. I've got a photo. This is from the back of 8 Penland Close, and I've got a photo from the rear of number 7 Penland Close as well. So in conclusion, the key issues for members are as outlined in the report and as highlighted during this presentation. The proposal is deemed acceptable in principle, is well designed, will not cause significant harm to neighbouring amenity, provides an adequate drainage scheme, secures ecological enhancements and sustainability measures, and has not resulted in any objections from the Local Highways Authority. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out before you and the successful completion of a legal agreement. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. I have 3 speakers. I may have got your name wrong. Is it Elaine Roberts or Elaine Robertson? Robertson. Thank you. It says of that on there, but it says Roberts on your statement. That's all. Right, you've got 2 minutes to speak. When you press the right-hand button, the red light will come on. And on that TV screen there, you will have a countdown. And after you've done 90 seconds, I will say 30 seconds to go. It's okay. This is not a court of law. Just take your time.
As stated at section 12.56 of the Planning Committee's report, members will be aware that 21 metres is the widely accepted minimum separation distance in a back-to-back distance between properties to ensure unacceptable harm through overlooking does not occur. I live at number 7 Penland Close, and my neighbours at number 8 and I are the 2 properties which the accepted minimum separation distance is not even close to being met. At only 15 metres, it's more than 25% below the recommended minimum. This is a minimum, not a target, so ideal would clearly be considerably more than 21 metres. The distance 21 metres would not have been concluded upon if there had not been significant evidence to prove that anything below this was detrimental. Both number 7 and number 8 are small, single-storey bungalows, potentially the smallest properties in the entire area affected by the development, and both are below the level of the development land. These are not properties of equal size and standing to the proposed buildings. The new buildings, of 2.5-storey, will significantly and detrimentally dominate the existing very small single-store bungalows. 7 and 8 are the worst affected properties in terms of distance, yet the developer, curiously, did not select either of our properties as one to undertake their distance study over. The developer has proposed that the new buildings, particularly close to number 7 and 8, are fitted with obscured glazing and have top vent opening windows. This would be unlikely to be any real enforcement should a future resident change the glazing. Glazed windows would also not in any way mitigate the overbearing nature of the buildings themselves, which would just be 15 metres away from the small bungalows set well below them. I'd respectfully ask that the committee request that the developers amend their plan so that the accepted minimum at least is adhered to. The land is in an unusual position of being set above the majority of the surrounding residential area, and I agree with the Town Council that the flooding risk report is unconvincing. I would say the same about the Great Store being placed into a rain garden. Rainwater already runs down onto surrounding properties, causing some flooding issues. And
Thank you. Can you conclude in one sentence,
with a
please?
duty not to exacerbate existing problems, it would seem short-sighted to permit development which could bring heightened flood risk to residents.
Thank you. I have another speaker, Robert White. And the same again, if you press the right-hand button when you're ready to speak, and the 2 minutes will appear on the screen behind me and in front of me. Thank you.
We would like to object to the proposed development of the land next to Haywards Heath Cottage. The objection is because the proposed properties impose too much on 7 and 8 Penland Close. 7 and 8 Penland Close are tiny little 2-bedroom bungalows. The proposed properties behind and above 7 and 8 Penland Close are 4 properties made up of 2 semi-detached 2-floor buildings with 3 bedrooms suitable for 5 people. They are too big and too close. After we raised this issue, an overlooking and distance study was made. The study conducted was made using 9 Penland Close as an example, but number 9 is the bungalow on Penland Close furthest from the proposed properties. Number 7 and 8 are closer to the proposed development. Why wasn't this study made against these 2 properties? We feel this is misrepresentation, and as such, the study is inaccurate. We ask that the plans are changed so the proposed properties behind numbers 7 and 8 Penland Close are smaller and further away. The plans are too aggressive in their current state.
Thank you very much. And I have a third speaker who's speaking in support, and that's Rob Morgan. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of the planning application at Turners Mill Road. I'm Rob Morgan, the planning agent, speaking on behalf of the applicant, Turners Mill Development Limited. Our proposals will bring a vacant brownfield site within the built-up area of Haywards Heath back into use. The site has been vacant for some time, and it's been demonstrated that there is no reasonable likelihood of the site being used for educational purposes. As such, the principle of development is acceptable. The proposals are the culmination of a design-led process guided by positive engagement with officers since pre-application discussions began in early 2023. The development will deliver 16 new high-quality homes, including a policy-compliant level of affordable housing in a mix of dwelling types focused towards the delivery of family homes. We are mindful of the neighbour comments received and have continued to engage with officers since submission of the planning application to minimise impacts on neighbours as far as possible. This has included amendments to internal layouts and detailed assessment of the relationship between the proposal and existing neighbouring properties, the scope of which was agreed with your officers prior to being undertaken. Your officers are in support of the proposals and find that significant harm would not occur to neighbouring amenity in accordance with your adopted policies. Your drainage officer has reviewed the proposals twice in light of the neighbour representations and has no objections, either in terms of flood risk or the surface water drainage strategy. Overall, the development can be accommodated without increasing flood risk within the locality in accordance with planning policy requirements. The proposals will also deliver other social, economic and environmental benefits, including creation of a new accessible green space within the site, which will provide community grow beds.
30 seconds.
Financial benefits for the local economy, including the creation of new jobs during the construction phase, new local spend from future residents, and Section 106 contributions of around £290,000 to local infrastructure, opportunities to promote sustainable travel modes and biodiversity enhancements. We'd like to thank officers for their positive engagement throughout and for their comprehensive report to committee, as they have set out the proposals accord with the development plan as a whole, having regard to material considerations. We therefore hope that members will support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart, before we start the debate, the first speaker said there was a lesser distance, 15 metres, is that correct? Do you know if you, because I think that's a little bit more than the 20 metres.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, yeah, it was something I mentioned as well in my presentation about the distance between some of the proposed units and the Pendon Close properties is down to 15 metres in places.
Yeah.
But I think the point to make there is that in response to that, the applicant has come up with a design solution to that. So there's no debate that there is a less than 21 metre separation, but there is a design response where that 21 metres is breached. And that is that the first floor windows are just the bathrooms, and we can then condition that to be obscured glazing, top vent opening.
Yeah, I wanted to just to clarify that. And also the lady said that there'll be pressure to change the windows, but that'll always be a condition for it to be glazed as an obscured.
Quite right, yeah. So the condition will apply in perpetuity, not just to the first occupier, for example.
Thank you.
And it obviously is enforceable.
Thank you. Right, members, I'm in your hands. Who wishes to go first? Or not, as the case may be. That's the end with this. Right.
Well, I did pause and let somebody else have it. First of all, planning officer.
Before you start, though, can I just reiterate to members and anybody who's listening, this is a brownfield site.
Yeah.
And it falls within the windfall part of our district plan. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sorry
but
to
we
interrupt.
want it to be tastefully designed and appropriate to the situation. First of all, planning officer, on our updates sheet, are you saying that none of those 16 houses will be able in the future to have permitted development? Have I got that clear?
That's true. So if you just have a look at condition 32
Okay,
in Appendix A.
okay.
So I haven't got page number to direct you to. I've
No,
got
that's
page
all right.
numbers in my
It's a condition.
86.
condition. Okay, thanks, Sharon. Page
Condition.
86. So condition 32. All we're doing, we're just making it clear. So the purpose of the update in the update sheet is to make clear what category, what classes within those PD rights this will apply to. So it's already set out there in terms of enlargements, roof extensions, roof additions, roof alterations, any new windows, etc. But it's just to spell it out in addition to what's set out in that. So yeah, almost a blanket removal of permitted development rights.
Thank
So
you
they
very
could still, sorry, they could still do things like a porch at the front, a driveway, things like that. But any sort of alteration to, any substantial alteration to the dwelling house itself will require consent.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, can I proceed?
Yes, you
Okay,
can.
I'm bemused, page 51, 10.11, when it talks about surface water. So it says rain that lands on green space, such as gardens, will continue to behave naturally and flow downhill. However, much of the rain will be captured and directed. Please, can you explain how it will be captured and directed away from the surrounding properties? That's one question. Okay, and I am wondering, although in two instances, 15 meters between Pendon Close and then 16 meters away from Turner's Hill Close, and the recommendation is 21 meters, I wonder how a design can actually alter an overbearing situation. Even if the bathroom windows are glazed, the house will exist 15 meters away, and to me that could constitute an overbearing situation. yes, I think that's my comment for the moment. Thank you.
Just a second, before you do that, could you put up what was there before? And that might answer one of your questions. What was there before it got flattened? Because my daughter went to that college, and if you have a look there, you can see that is two-storey buildings, and that was classrooms. So there was a degree of overlooking then. But I'm just saying, I know what you're saying, but just letting you know what was there before. Don't think what's there now, what was there before.
It's not comparable, a school and a resident, sorry, but, okay, so my question about the flowing downhill water, how is that going to be captured and deviated? And I feel that it is, Chairman, a situation of overbearing in a couple of those instances. A design can't really correct how close the house is. Thank you. Right.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, if we could just draw members' attention to not necessarily what's within the application detail section, but within the assessment section and the drainage mini section, subsection. So flood risk and drainage, which starts from paragraph 12.110 onwards. So paragraph 12.114, and I'll just read this out because I think it's important. It says, regarding surface water drainage, the officer being the council's technical expert on these matters, has commented that the applicant's submissions show a surface water drainage strategy which would capture rain landing on all hard surfaces of the development, roofs, driveways, etc., and store it in large underground tanks before slowly releasing this water into the public sewer system. So there's an engineering solution being proposed to the situation. The system is designed to be able to manage water for very heavy storms, both now and in the future. Then following completion of the development, rain that lands on green space, this is green space post-development, such as gardens, will continue to behave naturally and flow downhill. However, much of the rain will be captured on any of those hard surfaces within the new development and directed away from those surrounding properties. So I think it's important to make the point that it's not within the gift of this planning application or the proposal to address any existing issues. I think it's important to make clear that they should not accentuate any existing issues, and that's what the proposal will do here, as confirmed by the council's drainage expert. Thanks, Chair.
And the other bit.
Oh yeah, sorry. On the over, I think it needs to be clear here that the 21 metre distance, I'll call it, that is basically a guideline that we generally apply. But that's in respect of overlooking. So we would normally say, well, as long as there's a back-to-back, and it's to do with back-to-back distances. If the 21 metres is exceeded, then that's sufficient to demonstrate that we're happy that no significant harm can be demonstrated. If it's less than that, then there's other factors we need to look at. But again, it's important to make clear this is overlooking. It's not a 21 metre distance to do with something being overbearing. That's more of a judgment call based on the site characteristics and the lie of the land, any intervening vegetation, etc. So yeah, just to make clear what that difference is, the 21 metres applies to overlooking. And in this case, and I said a moment ago already, that there is a design response to that because it's accepted that there is a breach of that 21 metre distance.
So,
Now, before I allow you to come back, Councillor Henwood, does anybody else wish to say anything? Councillor Cherry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I note that currently Haywards Heath College has stated that it has no intention of providing extra sports facilities in the near future, and there's no known public funding for such an enterprise. But however, I think we mustn't lose sight of the fact that this development is resulting in the loss of educational land. And this is during a time of high levels of housing development in the area. And should not this land be protected for future educational use and expansion? Thank you.
Well, I was just dead pleased it came back into life after all the years it was closed. Councillor Hitchcock.
Thank you. I would like to back Janice up, Councillor Henwood. I'm of the view that 7 and 8 are substantially overlooked by this development, and they are far too close. You've got to remember that this is a hilltop site, and the hilltop site streaks down the hill, down through Penland Close to Penland Road. It's quite a steep climb. And in this situation, I think the rear elevations of those properties will be significantly overbearing. I would also like to add that I've personally experienced flooding in Penland Road twice. The water situation, which is beyond the control of the developer, the water situation with Southern Water's drainage systems in Penland Road and the Mill Road are very, very poor at the moment, and it needs upgrading. And it's only going to add to Southern Water's problem when this water is going directly into that system. End of story.
I've got to concur, has been flooding in the past, but as you quite rightly said, I mean, the previous leader of the council lived there, so he always used to complain about the flooding. Councillor DeBell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When I look at all the plans for this, and particularly to do with the current population growth and affordable housing needs, I believe that it meets everything. It meets fully, as has been said, affordable to meet growing, expanding population needs, yes. Meets fully the planning requirements, yes, you can't argue with that. Fills the land, yes. However, when I look at this, it gives me an amount of sadness. We have seen in front of this committee over a period of time where plans have been made with affordable places, with places that have become available, aspirational new homes elsewhere. And I think that this is a possible opportunity that the developer has missed out on, because I don't believe that people would be so upset about this if there was some more aspirational homes, as we have seen in other developments elsewhere. And I believe that people are crying out for those sort of things. So yes, you can't argue with this because it meets all the requirements, but it makes me very sad, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I hear where you're coming from, because it would have been good to overcome this if those been bungalows, but which is basically what the district's crying out for. Councillor Kenny. I have not forgotten you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny.
Yep, I'd like to join you with the general concerns about the development being overbearing on the neighbouring properties. And it's interesting to note that whilst there is some provision for affordable housing, the current plan still has 5 4-bedroomed houses on this site. And I find myself, wondering, could we not have had a better design that was less ambitious, that didn't try to squeeze so much into the plot? It is not that, that me or I believe this committee is in any way anti-development. We definitely want to get more homes, but not all of these homes address the pressing housing needs of mid-Sussex. And so I don't know if a good way to express our feeling that the design is trying to squeeze too much commercial profit out of this space, and that to back it in its current form, would be doing a disservice not only to the immediate neighbours, but it's not doing enough to address the pressing housing needs. And this is a topic that's going to come up later in this meeting, where we're seeing property developments that trumpet the fact that housing is being provided without any discussion of the form of housing, exactly as Councillor DeBell has just raised. I support him in raising that. So I don't know whether it's possible to, Chairman, I'll look for your guidance, to express in some way that we would like the developer to reconsider their proposals from at least two perspectives. One of the degree to which the proposals are overbearing, and secondly, to the degree to which the housing included is, to use Councillor de Bell's words, aspirational. That's it.
For members who followed the first couple of weeks of the district plan, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with both your comments, purely because the lady who sat here wants to up the densities within built-up areas, and this is a built-up area. I agree, it would have been nice if those two buildings had been bungalows, so it would have taken away the overbearing conduct part of it. But we all know why developers want four-bedroom houses. But we're not here to amend the scheme to how we want it. We can only deal with what we've got in front of us. And I do sympathise. They're small little bungalows, because when I looked at the small little bungalows and I had a look, I thought, oh, they're small. And then you look up beyond them, you're thinking, no, that's going to have a big old house up there. So before I allow you to come back, anybody who hasn't spoken yet wishes to speak? Councillor Janice Henwood. Don't touch it. Paul, can you switch yours?
Councillor Kenny wishes to speak first.
No, you're next.
Well, Chairman, I wanted to propose that we ask at least for a deferment so that the designer can come back with more suitable, because I feel like this does not agree with DP 26, DG 45, and DG 41.
Okay. I've just been told it would require, we couldn't defer it.
Okay.
Because it'll have to be a brand new planning application. So therefore, it'll have to be approved or refused.
Okay. So I would like to propose that we refuse this on the basis it's contrary to DP 26, DG 45, and DG 41, Chairman.
Mr. Ashdown.
Shall I go for?
Could you switch yours off, please?
Beg you.
So, I know in terms of the policies you're referring to, you just need to be specific in terms of what's the harm that's creating the conflict with the policies. That's what I think we all need to be clear on before any vote takes place.
Okay.
No, could you press your button again, please?
DG 26 does not cause significant harm to the amenities of existing nearby residents and future occupants. I believe the overbearing will cause harm to the existing occupants.
And sorry, that's in relation to specific plots that's been mentioned before. I just want to be clear, it's not all of them, it's specific plots.
I believe, Chairman, it's the ones that are below the 20-metre back-to-back,
Okay, well,
in particular.
I may be told off now, but I think we've also got to take this in the realm, the whole aspect of this.
Okay.
So you've got to weigh up pros and cons. There are some cons, we all agree there are some cons, but you've also got to think of the pros. And the pros are, if you go to page 47, we're getting 2 one-bedroom masonettes, 2 two-bedroom houses on the site, and a commuted sum to provide off-site affordable housing. So they are trying to do what the best they can do. Hang on a second. But you've just got to weigh up the pros and you've got to weigh up the cons, and don't just concentrate on the cons. I agree, there is a degree of overlooking. I'm not an apologist for the developer. I'm trying to be the chairman who's got to advocate either way. So. Paul, did you want to? Or Steve, about it?
Chair, before any alternative motion is put forward, I think all other members should be given the chance to discuss the application.
There are some people who haven't spoken yet. So I've got at least 3 people who haven't spoken, 4 people who haven't spoken. If they're happy with what they have and see in front of them, then silence assents. But if they wish to say something, then I feel that they should be given a chance to say something before we take your motion. Councillor Sweatman, sorry, I'm a vice chairman as well. Councillor Sweatman.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I understand the concerns about the separation distances, but the our consultees have no objection to this site. It is a brownfield site. They mitigated against the overlooking by obscure windows, which is in perpetuity, as Stuart has said. I think the test here, where people talk about harm, is the significant harm. And that, when we say significant harm, that is quite a high bar when we look at that in planning terms. Yes, it is going to be, I can really understand residents' concerns, but I really don't think we've got any planning reasons, and that's what we have to look at. We can't look at changing the application by telling the developer to go away and come back and say we want this and want that. That's a totally separate allocation. We have to make a decision what we're looking at here in front of us today. And like I say, in planning terms, and you have to look at it in planning terms, that there really is not a reason, or I may not like this application, obviously some members don't. But like I say, we have to look at this in planning terms. And therefore, I would have to recommend that this application is approved, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you have got a slight motion over here. Before that, Councillor Brown, do you wish to say anything?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I didn't really get an answer from Councillor Cherry's question about the educational college use of the site. And I mean, in the present environment, we've got a new government who's keen to skill people, and that means education. And it seems to me that this is a change from the previous applications and the previous use of the land. I'm not really convinced that it's a wise thing to be doing. So that's one thing. And the other is, this is, you know, I've just heard that there's off-site affordability contributions for affordable property off-site. Just said that. And I'd rather the site was being was not providing 4-bedroom houses in this location. So I have problems with the development as it stands as well, notwithstanding other things that have already been said. So thank you.
Okay, just been pointed out on page 55, paragraph 12.9, policy DP25 remains to community facilities. And this is why it was set out that this land has been deemed to be superfluous for future use on education here. And after all said and done, this was in conjunction with, if I remember rightly, Chichester University? Chichester University, they deemed it, they didn't need it for this purpose. So, and the conclusion is on 12.12 on page 57. They say they have no contradictory evidence to reasonably come to an alternate conclusion on this site. So, don't like it, but there's things we don't like about it, but you've got to weigh up, as you say, the scales, tip it towards one or the other, and that's what we're here for. As we've always said, you get the difficult ones in this committee. We've got a motion to, Councillor Casella, you haven't said anything yet.
Looking at it, I would say they're squeezing quart into a pint pot. And the way the houses have been engineered to overcome the overlooking, to me, renders two houses that are going to have upstairs that are going to be incredibly dark. Because if you look, there's only sort of 2 or 3 windows going around the whole property. Will I buy one of those? No, but it's not my choice. And as Councillor Sweatman has said, at the end of the day, planning-wise, they're following the rules.
My Vice Chairman. Great. Could you switch
Thank you,
off?
Chair. Yes, I've got 2 or 3 concerns about this. First, I think Chichester University or the education establishment that owns the land have clearly decided to sell it because it's not viable. They've got to balance their books as well. So I think we have to take that on board and accept it as it's explained in the report. The second point is that it's a real shame, I think, that the study that was done about the proximity of the proposed houses, particularly near 7 and 8 Pentland Road, didn't look at the proximity of 7 and 8 Pentland Road, but looked rather at another property that was further away. Quite why that was done seems strange to me. Perhaps there is an answer for that, but I don't know. So that concerns me, and I'm also concerned about the drainage, because although we've heard that there is facility to store the rainwater that's falling off roofs and driveways, if there's an issue there already, as seems to be the case, then I don't think it's really been fully addressed. So I've got concerns about that. But then again, the overall, the overall view that I seem to have is that the developer could have done better with this. And now, do we refuse it on the basis that he could have done better and have perhaps put those 2 properties particularly further away, or had something different instead there? I don't know. I think it's very difficult to make a decision on this, although we're told, and I agree, several councillors have said that the planning requirements are met for this. Thank you.
Right, we have a motion to refuse from Councillor Henwood. Do I have a seconder? So, hang on a second. Oh, been told off again.
I just, obviously, I know Councillor Henwood explained the position in terms of the impact from the properties in respect to DP 26. I know you did mention DP 41 as well, and drainage, and I know a couple of other members have raised the issue of drainage. What I would say in respect of that is the drainage advice that we have from our drainage officers is that the application in this respect is acceptable. So, I would just caution, you on the fact that, were you to pursue that, then, there is an issue in terms of what evidence you could take forward to try and sustain any reason for refusal should the application be refused on those grounds where we don't have any technical advice to support it. That's just in the point in terms of drainage.
And you said there was another one, you had 3.
There was...
Hang on a second.
No,
Councillor Henwood, yeah, could Paul...
P41, DG41, sloping sites. Does the development respond to a sloping site with the building stepping to follow the slope where appropriate? It's a sloping site, which I feel like because of the 15-meter closeness, it's not dealt with the slope properly. I also, DG 45, which says the amenities of existing or future residents should be preserved or looked after. So that's the 2, DG 45, DG 41, and DP 26.
That's fine, sorry, because they're from the design guide, which obviously supplementary guidance which helps support the district plan policies in terms of DP 26, that's fine. But I just wanted to raise the issue just about drainage, because I know some members have raised that, Chairman. I don't know whether Stuart's got anything else he wants to say at this particular point.
Yeah, I do, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Chair, just a few points of clarification from some of the things that members have mentioned. I just want to be absolutely clear what the affordable housing provision is in response to Councillor Brown. So there's 4 affordable units to be provided on site in addition to the commuted sum. So there's 4 affordable units on site. That will see a provision of 2 one-bed units and 2 two-bed units. And that's in addition to the 7 3-bed and 5 4-bed market units. This comes back to a point Councillor Kenny made about the mix. I think in terms of meeting the policy requirements of housing mix on site, officers are more than content that that mix meets the policy requirements. But I just wanted to make that clear because I don't think it had come across clearly what the affordable housing provision was. So that's what it is on site. Councillor Kennedy asked a question about the additional study that had been done, and I do have an answer for that. So halfway through the application, well, following the initial assessment of the application, officers wanted to see some more detail drill down into some of the detailed relationships between some of the proposed plots and some of the neighbouring properties. Now, a lot of that work had been done before the application was submitted, and that's what I talked about at the outset, that there is a design response to some of those close relationships, i.e. the 15-metre relationships. There is a design response to that, and that the applicant has designed the properties not to have rear first floor facing windows. But in addition to that, I wanted to see more detail about some of those other relationships, and that's why the applicant submitted an additional study, like I said, halfway through the assessment process, or halfway through the lifetime of the application, to supplement what they'd already submitted. So that's why it focused on a handful of properties, because I'd already made an assessment in my professional judgment about the impact of the development on those other properties, but I wanted to see more detail on those other specific properties that are highlighted in the study. So that's why it focuses on those particular properties and not every single property. And I think Mr. Ashdown picked up on some of the other points that have been raised that I would have come back on. So,
Right.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman.
This is your one time coming back.
Right, commuted sum. The point, yes, I don't see why it's necessary to have a commuted sum. My point was, the site should be balanced and provide the necessary affordable content. And the other thing I just wanted to emphasise to other members, and of course it's the design guide that Councillor Henwood was talking about, and that's been clarified now. So there's a bit of confusion there between the design guide, and the design guide must carry weight as well, and not. I don't think she was talking about the drainage. She was talking about the proximity and slope. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a established fact that you can take commuted sums off-site and go somewhere else and spend that somewhere else, say a block of flats or whatever. I don't know what the money's going to be put forward. It will go into a pot and it will provide affordable housing elsewhere, hopefully within Haywards Heath, but I don't have the purse strings to that one. So we've got a motion to refuse, which is put up by Councillor Henwood. Have we got a seconder to refuse? Councillor Brown? Right, can we vote on this is the motion to refuse, not the motion to approve. Okay? On the basis of what Councillor Henwood have said about the relationship and the two design guide aspects of it. So DP 20.
Yeah, so
DP 26, design guide 45 and design guide 41.
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Oh, you're allowed to speak. Yeah, you're allowed to speak. You're not allowed to vote. Because you've had to. You can talk if you wish to. No, okay. Right. So you're voting on Councillor Henwood's motion to refuse, not what we've got in our pack here. So green is you support Councillor Henwood's, red you don't support, and yes, and yellow you're going to abstain. Okay. It looks, I've only got 9, I've got one more to come. Please tell me that's not me. Okay. 5 are in support of Councillor Henwood's motion, 4 against Councillor Henwood's motion and 1 abstaining, so therefore it has been refused. The final wording is to be agreed between myself and the Vice Chairman and Councillor, sorry, I promoted you then, or not as the case may be, the Planning Officer, Mr. Malcolm. That has been refused. Okay. Well, moving on to the next item on my list of all the things I've got to do. Item 8, which is DM 230990, Walnut Marches, Crawley Down Road, Felbridge, East Grinstead, and that is pages, looks like 111 in our report. Who's doing this one? Stuart. Right. This is yours again, Stuart. And better luck this time.
It is, thanks. Right, updates. Have we got any updates? I don't think we've got any updates for this one. No. I suppose actually what I should mention at this juncture is that members will have noted from the report that reference was made to a further request to Surrey County Council for their comments on the matter. Bear in mind a small section of the access onto the public highway is within their jurisdiction, but I have not received any comments on that. So we've got the West Sussex comments, but no Surrey County Council comments.
A little bit there.
Right, so the application, the site is located on the edge of the built-up area of East Grinstead, next to Felbridge, so that part of the world. The built-up area boundary is shown by the black line on the plan, and the site, as indicated by the red line on the plan, measures 0.6 hectares in area and has one 2-storey detached dwelling located broadly centrally within it. So there is existing vehicular access into the site from the west, broadly in this location here, where this access track leads north directly up to the public highway I just mentioned a moment ago, which is Crawley Down Road. This is a C classified road, and this access track, you'll have seen from the report, is also a public footpath. So the western part of the access onto Crawley Down Road is within mid-Sussex, and this small triangular section on the eastern side, where this burgundy line severs it, so the small triangular section is within Pandridge and Surrey County Council. So I've got an aerial image. I'm afraid I haven't got the red line on this image because it's borrowed from Google. But the blue line points to the site, and the dwelling, like I said a moment ago, is sort of broadly centrally located. This image does, though, show that a lot of the existing vegetation within the site is largely around the boundary edges. It also shows that neighbouring residential properties are on all 4 sides of the development, and there are clusters of both modern and more historic development in the immediate vicinity. I'll talk more, though, about the surrounding development in a moment on another slide. So the proposal before members is to demolish the existing dwelling and erect 6 new houses in its place. In terms of the dwelling mix, 2 of these properties will be 3-bed houses and 4 will be 5-bed houses.
6, Stuart. You're giving me a heart attack.
Did I say 16?
You're giving me a heart attack then.
16 on the previous application. It's definitely 6 on this one. Apologies. I blame my handwriting, but it's typed out. So there is no affordable housing provision on site for this scheme, given the nature of it, but a commuted sum of £178,000 has been agreed with the housing officer and will be secured through the legal agreement. All the 6 houses front onto the centrally located cul-de-sac, with 3 houses in the northern half of the site facing south and 3 in the southern half facing north. Access into the site will be from the west, directly onto the access drive that runs north-south, connecting to the public highway further to the north on Crawley Down Road. Each house will have parking for up to 3 car parking spaces on a private drive, and cycle parking is also proposed for each property. West Sussex Highways raised no objection to the proposals, and conditions are set out in Appendix A, securing a construction management plan, as well as the car and cycle parking. And as mentioned a moment ago, just to reiterate, Surrey County Council, despite requests from us, have not provided any comments on the proposals. With respect to the trees on site, 6 are to be removed, with one of these being Category B. 2 of them are Category Cs and 3 are uncategorised. No objections to this loss have, though, been raised by the Council's tree officer, and full landscape details are to be reserved by condition. And in terms of drainage on this site, the applicant's strategy will attenuate surface water drainage and discharge it at Greenfield runoff rate. So I've got some of the elevations for you. These are plots 1 and 6 next to the site entrance. These are the smaller of the units, the 3 beds. The dwellings are brick built and contemporary in appearance, with large glazed areas to both the front and the rear. Plots 1 and 6 are the same, but handed, being on opposite sides of the cul-de-sac to one another. Overall, officers are content with the architectural approach on this scheme, with the design, size and scale of the dwellings being deemed to be in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. The other 4 dwellings are slightly larger, these being the 5 beds, and these are similar in appearance. Again, one of these properties is handed. The impact on residential amenity is one of the key issues to assess in this application, with the full assessment of this found in the report from paragraphs 12.46 to 12.65. Separation distances, the intervening vegetation and the degree of obliqueness to the angle of some of the relationships are sufficient to ensure significant harm will not occur to the majority of neighbouring residents. However, on the eastern side of the site, additional measures are required to ensure such a conclusion is reached here too. And as such, conditions requiring obscured glazing to the bathroom windows at first floor level on the east elevations of plots 3 and 4 are required. And that's these plots here on the, like I said, on the eastern side of the development, in relatively close proximity to a new build just to the east. Therefore, and in accordance with the full rationale set out in the report, as I drew members' attention to a moment ago, officers do not consider the proposed relationship here would constitute significant harm. So I'm just going back to the matter of principle. I did say I had another image for you, and this is an image which forms part of the applicant's submissions, with the application site being located in red here. So as set out in the report, the development causes some conflict with the development plan insofar as what type of development is allowable under policies DP6, DP12 and DP15 of the district plan. The application fails to comply with all the criteria of DP6 owing to a 15-metre separation gap to the defined built-up area boundary, which is located to the north. But as per planning legislation, a decision must be made in accordance with the development plan unless there are any material planning considerations which would indicate otherwise. In this case, however, there are material planning considerations that indicate a decision should be made that is not wholly in compliance with the development plan. As members can clearly see from this image, the application site is essentially surrounded by relatively new development on all sides, other than the area to the far southeast here. The new developments, as shown in blue, are located to the immediate east, to the south, to the southwest, to the west, at the northwest and to the north of the application site. As such, it would be very difficult to reasonably justify the application site as not being suitable for development in principle, despite the terms of the development plan. The site is not isolated and relates well to existing recent development, and this material planning consideration should be given significant weight. Coupled with the other benefits associated with housing provision and the affordable housing commuted sum, these material planning considerations are considered to outweigh the identified conflict with the development plan. And in terms of some of the other issues I've not touched on yet, I just wanted to take this opportunity to mention biodiversity and sustainability. Although, a bit like the previous application on the agenda, that biodiversity net gain is not mandatory for this application because it was submitted before those provisions came into force. But a number of ecological mitigation measures and enhancements are being secured as set out in paragraph 12.79 of the report. This includes badger and hedgehog mitigation, native planting, various bird boxes, insect boxes, bat boxes, and the creation of a bat roost. Then in terms of sustainability, the applicant will need to adhere to their submitted sustainability statement, which includes the provision of a ground source heat pump, solar panels, and rainwater harvesting, amongst others. Just finish with a few photographs of the site. The first image is within the site, looking at the southern boundary and relatively new development behind, as I mentioned. The next image is a view looking at the western boundary from within the site, where the existing access is located. The next photo is looking back at the eastern boundary with the most recent adjoining development here beyond the boundary fence. I've got a more detailed look at this boundary and that relationship here too. So this is again the eastern boundary looking north with the 3 new dwellings permitted on land to the east visible on the right hand side. Got one image here of the northern boundary of the site, this up in the northwest corner. And I've got an existing access point image here, and this is a view looking north up the road, which is also the public right-of-way, which I've made clear. And the final image is just one of the applicant's submitted CGIs. So in conclusion, the key issues for members are as outlined in the report, as I've just taken you through. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and the completion of a legal agreement. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. We do have 2 speakers. Can I call Alex Hallwood, please, if you can come to that chair over next to my colleague there and press the right-hand button. You'll have 2 minutes to, and after 90 seconds, I will say you've got 30 seconds left. And you're ready.
The development of 6 homes is of a large notable density increase compared to previous developments along this footpath. This proposed development is on a footpath, not a lane, road or private access road. And as the access onto this site would not be directly from the Crawley Down Road, I am of the view that this isn't sustainable throughout construction and after. Wide heavy load lorries will be entering and leaving the site with materials on a daily and regular basis, thus putting additional weight and pressure on what is currently a fragile footpath with cracking in parts on the site. Site access should come directly from Crawley Down Road, ideally as a continuation of the access road through the Pershire Place development with its long, wide driveway, originally DM 174280. Access into Walnut Marches was once a pedestrian gate from the footpath. Cars entered from the Crawley Down Road direct. These plans hinder the safety of local pedestrians, dog walkers, families, children regularly using this footpath. Once built, this in turn would have a detrimental impact on the nature of the footpath, with the number of caravan movements significantly increasing on a daily basis, weekdays, early mornings, evenings. Regardless of the access point, this application is overdevelopment for its scale, size. The outlying houses are tightly situated in relation to the boundary edges. These amended plans, now with garages removed, don't reduce the cumulative impact. What does is a reduction in the number of homes built to a maximum of 4 from 6.
30 seconds.
More importantly, these plans are inconsistent with DP12 and DP6. This isn't an allocated site and falls outside a built-up area, not making it contiguous. This application is a concern for its accumulative impact to residents and users of the footpath. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Hallwood. And I have Julian Sharp, who's speaking in support of this application. Again, once you start to speak, the clock on the screen will start to tick down.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the applicants. We note that the application has been recommended for approval. I would like to highlight that the applicants work closely with officers to address all the concerns raised since the application was submitted last year. The development proposes a good level of separation between dwellings on the amended plans and retains the most significant trees on the site, with additional planting and ecological enhancements to be carried out as part of the landscaping proposals, as highlighted by Mr. Malcolm. The site is surrounded by other residential developments which have been approved. The proposed housing will make more efficient use of the site than the existing dwelling and provide high-quality housing. It would be illogical for this site not to be redeveloped in this context. The development would contribute to the housing land supply without the need for the loss of undeveloped countryside and therefore represents a sustainable approach to meeting the district's housing needs. I would like to take this opportunity to respond to some of the objections from residents. It is recognised that redevelopment would result in change. However, change is not necessarily harmful. And in this instance, the development would create a relatively spacious environment and relationship with surrounding properties. The officer's report notes at paragraph 12.55 onwards that the separation distances are greater than the minimum typically considered acceptable in the district, with existing vegetation in between, to maintain reasonable levels of privacy and outlook. The proposed access arrangements on the existing drive have been considered safe by the Highway Authority. The only tree removals are under arboricultural advice. The majority of the concerns relate to matters which would be controlled by the legal agreement and conditions on which the recommendation is based, in terms of local infrastructure contributions, Ashdown forest mitigation and social housing contributions, construction management, including hours of construction, deliveries, parking and access. I would therefore kindly request that members look to support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission, subject to the recommended conditions and legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. I'll go to the East Grinstead members first, because it's, then I will go to Councillor Casella, because, actually I should really go to you first, because you are the ward councillor for two of the houses. As well as yourself, yes, you are. No, you're the ward councillor. Sorry, Councillor Hitchcock first.
Okay.
Dick, can you switch yours on?
Yeah. I know the site very well. I know the footpath extremely well. I probably walk it 2 or 3 times a week. This is for want of a better word, a lane. It's more a track. It currently has about 9 properties on it, and most of those properties are beyond the proposed entrance, but there are 3 properties right on the junction with the Crawley Down Road. My main concern here is this is an extremely popular walking location. It is a key link in a circular route off the east side of Crawley Down Village and is used as such. And my worry is that during the construction period in particular, there will be continuous blockages on here. I don't see that they can write a satisfactory construction management plan when all the deliveries are going to be on this narrow track. I don't see that happening, and once the development is complete, I don't see that track is going to be capable of receiving any two-way traffic at certain times of the day. My other issue is with the density. Part of this development lies within the Crawley Down boundary, ward boundary. The Crawley Down neighbourhood plan has a specific maximum density in it. The neighbourhood plan, this exceeds that. 6 properties of this size on that location, in my view, is too many. The site would have been much better if the access had been through earlier place developments. That was the original intention, I'm sure. I don't know what the tariff is for crossing the boundary from Purley Place developments, but it would probably mean that this development would have to lose at least one building. In my view, that would be a much more satisfactory development. The other issue for me is, coming back to the footpath, I read Nick Scott's report from Prow. Nick has actually designated all the requirements for a construction programme on a Prow route, and I don't think this organisation can meet with many of those. It will therefore be in contradiction, in my view, to the Prow requirements. Overall, I think this is a bad idea to come off that lane. I think they should go away and think about coming through the best route, okay, and losing a house, and then this will be a super development.
Good point. Stuart, is it possible they could meet the Prow requirements for construction? Because I went to that lane and it's not as wide as you look at it, as you think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, but I think there's a couple of points I'd make in response to that. Now, firstly, to be clear, there's no objections from either the Highways Authority or the Public Rights of Way team on it. That's a key point. There's obviously other legislation that applies to the applicant in terms of their use of the public right of way that are beyond the parameters of planning. And they're sort of things that are touched on, as you said, Councillor Hitchcock, in Nick Scott's report. So I think that's important for members to bear in mind, that there's no objection from the two relevant experts on this type of assessment. And then the second point to make really is that using access roads that are also public footpaths for both construction and then for an operational use post-development, I don't think that's a particularly uncommon feature of new development. You know, whether that applies to a type of commercial development, a type of housing development, or whatever it may be, I don't think it's an unusual scenario to find ourselves in. I think that's all I'd say in direct response to that. I take the point about the alternative access, but I'm afraid it's the old cliche that came up in the previous item, and that members have got to make a decision on what's in front of them. So, yeah, that's it for me. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, it's this is an unusual application because part of the site sits within Worth Parish Council, 2 of the houses, and the other 4 houses fall within East Grinstead Town Council, and it's on page 116. One doesn't have an objection, subject to the highways approval, where Worth, Crawley Down have said we support the concerns raised by East Grinstead Town and Fellbridge Parish Council and object on.
That was earlier, though.
That was earlier. They came in 2023, where October this year was East Grinstead Town Council. Quite right, it's a year in the difference. So, was there an update from Worth at all, or was there any input into it a year in between?
That's the last set of comments.
That was the last set of comments. Never came back.
No, I think you forgot to advise the Parish Council that part of the land was in there.
Yeah, we've had that before.
Yeah, it's happened again.
Yeah, it's happened. Okay, anybody else wishes to speak? Oh, Councillor Henwood, this is right.
I have a query, a couple of questions.
Come on.
Now, on page 117, the question of density has been brought up. On page 117, item number 3 says that there seemed to have been miscalculation of the actual density which these houses would present, this new development. It was not comparable to the already existing houses. Are you with me? It's on page 117.
Yeah, paragraph 3.
Yeah, it says the planning, design, and access statement presents a biased view. So,
This is from Falbridge Parish Council.
well, I don't,
I'm just saying it's from Falbridge Parish Council.
I just want to know if it's correct.
Well,
That's what I would like to know, that the present density of the present houses is less, and that the proposed new houses, there would be a higher density than has been put forward by the planning, design, and access statement. That's just, I want a verification, please, Chairman.
Thanks, Chair. Just to be clear, so the density for this proposal is 10 dwellings per hectare, which isn't a very dense development. I think plot coverage and density are two different things, but there's 6 units proposed on this site, and that equates to 10 dwellings per hectare. So there's nothing in district plan policy that requires a particular density to be met. Developments have got to make best use of land as per the NPPF. And I think in this case, members need to take a judgment as to how this sits within the surrounding area. And that is possibly more of a plot coverage rather than just looking at the numbers set out by densities. And in this respect, and it was in one of the images I showed of the surrounding developments, the new developments, officers consider that this site sits, the development would sit comfortably within the surroundings and wouldn't look overly developed as a result of that. So, yeah, thanks, Chair.
Okay, so Chairman, you wanted me to present all my questions now. Is there any local bus service?
Yes, there
Because
is.
there is,
Yes,
once
there is.
an hour.
I don't know what the
Okay, and then there was a question, my last question was on page 166, so it'll take me a minute to find it. 166 had to do with 166 has to do with, it might be a trivial matter, it has to do with the size of the garages, I believe, on page 166. Double bay garage, it says, do not meet the internal specifications. On 166, somewhere, there's a comment there.
Chair, do you
And
want
I'm
me to?
just- Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, just to jump in there, there's no garages proposed. So garages were proposed originally, but they were removed at officer request because of the visual impact.
Thank you.
Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, quick observation, really. So I think the report says that all other things being equal, the development would be outside of policy matters, with the exception, there are a couple of arguments put forward saying why it should be put forward. One is the development in the surrounding areas, and then there's the references to the fact that there's an overall housing shortage. And that's the point I want to really speak to. So the part of the MPPF that's quoted in support of the development is that and I quote from the MPPF, the overall aim should be to meet as much of an area's identified housing need as possible, including with a mix of appropriate housing types for the local community. I'm wondering how many people in the local community will be buying 5-bedroomed homes in this development. My gut feeling is that part of the argument that's being put to us to support this is that it somehow contributes to Mid-Sussex's housing need, but as we know, it absolutely is not in the 5-bedroom house market. So in my deliberations about this, I'm going to discount the idea that this makes any kind of meaningful contribution to Mid-Sussex housing targets.
Fair point, but you've got to think of where it is. It's not a town centre location, that's the thing. Councillor Cherry.
Yes, I just wanted to pick up on an observation made by the archaeological consultant.
Have you got a page, any idea?
On page 165, It sounds quite interesting, actually, because he's saying that there's a very high potential for archaeological remains of a Roman, medieval, or even post-medieval date, and that he is recommending that we have that we carry out. We carry out an archaeological evaluation and excavation, which all sounds very exciting and very interesting. But my question is, how will this, if there is evidence found of this nature, how will that affect the proposed development?
But there's a condition that should they come across something, they stop. And then they have to inform, but the words are.
Usually what happens is obviously that they do the survey. If remains are found, then they're usually recorded and then backfilled in again. Usually, unless they're obviously of something exceptional of national importance, you know, that would require further protection. But generally speaking, it's about discovering what is under the ground, recording what is there, and then obviously anything that can be removed may be removed. Otherwise, it will be recorded, left in situ, and then built over.
It's a standard one, because, you know, we do know in this area and around Sussex, there are lots of Roman, you could say medieval stuff as well.
Yes, but it
is something we don't normally come across, but believe me, there is a condition there every time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think the quirky houses, difficult spot, difficult access, and I doubt they'll dig up Richard III again. We've got him, hasn't he?
And we got him.
But this is a very historically, this is quite a place for, as Councillor Cherry's highlighted, this is quite a spot for Henry VIII. He had a hunting lodge around here, and it is quite possible when they start digging around, they'll find something. Now, my personal view is, as I say, quirky houses, interesting ideas, but a difficult spot to get to with traffic, particularly, as we've heard, and not along a walk route. I'm sorry, Stuart, it's just, it's not your evening, mate, but I'm not wild about this one, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just to let you know, the actual Henry VIII's Lodge was in my ward, in Turners Hill.
There's one or two, actually.
Yes, there was. It's in Turners Hill. He had one of his wives there and then got rid of her. Like he did a lot of them. Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this piece of land has found itself surrounded, given up and surrendered. If you go back to the site, if you can put that up, there's just been approved a 200 application for houses near, well, right next door to it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Where the white whiting is.
It's obviously lends itself to be developed. The only thing is I just wonder when we're going to stop allowing buildings on that area down Crawley Down Road, because although both the highways, Surrey and West Sussex highways, come up and say there's no objection to traffic, well, in practice there is, but we can't go into that. And to be quite honest, I don't think 6 houses is going to make any difference to the impact on the highways. You know, it's just a shame, really, because it's just getting too much in times down there. I just wonder if we're going to stop. But other than that, I can't see any planning reasons to refuse this application.
You're right. Quirky houses, I went to Guildford just before, a couple of weeks ago, and those quirky houses are all over in that part of the world. That seems to be the weird houses they wanted to build there with these sort of cathedral-style windows. That seems to be the name of the game. We had 2 smaller windows in the other one, and these are huge. if you look at what we've got coming up later, I think it's the last item, exactly the same. It is surrounded by the Northern Arc, and we've got this little bit of land that we've got to deal with. Yeah, I mean, I visited the site, and I agree, it is narrow, and I think a very strong construction management plan should be put in place that they don't dwell in that road, because I've got one in my own village where they wanted to dwell outside the site on a route to school with all the kids from my village. So they've been told you're not parking there. It causes them annoyance, but, you know, we've got to think of the residents as well in these phases. Construction is a pain, we know, and we've just got to make sure that they mitigate what they can do. Councillor Hitchcock, you wish to come back?
Yeah, just a quickie, a piece of information for the developer. 50 metres south of that site, just beyond Ascot, is a moated medieval house, ruins of. So there is likely to be a lot of finds in and around that area.
I should imagine we'll get somebody from the county council coming down, because they're the archaeological people. Councillor Brown, you haven't spoken yet.
No, I've got a question really. I wonder if it's possible to put the plan up again, the overhead.
What, with all the blue squares around it?
Yes, because I just want to understand.
That one?
That's right, yeah. So the road to the north is the main Fellbridge Road.
No, it's not. It's the Crawley Down Road.
Oh, that's the Crawley Down Road. That's
The one above that, further up, is the Fellbridge.
Fellbridge Road. Okay, right. So
It's marked Crawley Down and Felbridge.
fine.
Crawley Down Road, Fellbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Fellbridge as in the area, but not the Fellbridge Road.
Thank you very much. So that answers my question. It's not an A road. It's
Not the A264.
No, it's a C road, isn't it? I don't think it's even a B road.
It's not a B road, no.
No. Now the other thing is the construction management plan, condition 7, and I know from my own personal experience in my village where it was actually a bridle way, but it was pretty much the same width. There would be no obstruction of it due to construction. Well, there was, and it wasn't enforced. It just went on, and I can see a great difficulty with people walking up and down this public right of way. And this construction, I can't see how it can be constructed, quite frankly. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the construction management plan is agreed by officers, and it is the parish isn't consulted. And, you know, and I think the parish have got something to say and something to know about with the amount of usage of it. And, you know, if you're going to have construction materials and construction vehicles, I mean, the number of vehicles that are involved in construction these days, there were outside a single house in Hosted Keynes Lane, I think I counted 20
What, for one house?
vehicles. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's 15 stories high and...
it was several hundred yards of the road was single track, and that was the other day. So I don't see this as being constructible, quite frankly. That's my second point. Thank you.
That's down to the developer and the fact that we have highlighted this, which means the parish council and two parish councils and the town council will be on it the whole time. I have nobody else to speak. The recommendation, what hasn't been mentioned, if you go to page 142 and 143, there's an awful lot of contributions that this site will bring, to the county council and to Mid Sussex, and the 178,000 commuted sum. So it's quite a sizable amount of money. Stuart, could you just put up the recommendations on there, please, instead of me reading it all out, please? You should probably get fed up with my voice. There are. There's the recommendations. You've got two recommendations. Recommendation A is to grant permission, and recommendation B is if a satisfactory plan application hasn't been signed by the 5th of March next year, i.e. the section 106, then it will be refused, subject to the man next to me making that decision.
Assistant Director.
Oh, Assistant Director, one above you then. Oh, I nearly stitched you up then, didn't I? Okay. Can I have a proposer, please, for this? Councillor Sweatman, and a seconder, please. Somebody from East Grinstead, maybe? No? I'll second it. All right. My Vice Chairman will second it then. Right. Oh, as always, can we put up the voting bit, please? Green if you agree with the recommendation, red if you don't, and yellow if you abstain. 9. One more to go. Right, that has been approved. There are 6 in favour of this application and 4 against, so that has been approved. Thank you very much. Now, before we proceed to the next item, I propose we have a 10-minute comfort break, because I strongly suggest the next one may be a bit longer than the previous ones we've just had. Councillor Casella, do you want to leave now?
Yeah. Like watching paint dry.
Yeah, okay, we're back live again now. A couple of points I've got to say. Councillor Kinsella has left the meeting. He had a prior engagement and he had to leave by 6:30. The chances are we won't make 7 o'clock cut off. So at some point, I'm going to have to ask permission from the whole committee to extend the meeting beyond the 3-hour mark, which is 7 o'clock. So I'm hoping that we can canter through it. I don't want to cut off any debate, but that's just, I've got to state that.
You could ask it now.
Okay, we can ask it now. Should the meeting go past the 3-hour mark, can we just put your hands up and say, yay, we go for it? Or not, as the case may be. You're outvoted. As usual. No, we've already discussed that. He's not riding, it's too dangerous out there. Right, so this is item 9. And it's land rear of 96 Folders Lane, Burgess Hill, West Sussex, and it's yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Just checking, there's no updates on this one. So the application before members is for full planning permission for the erection of 40 dwellings, 12 of which will be affordable units on land rear of 96 Folders Lane. So the application site is outlined in red here. 96 Folders Lane is here. As I said, the main part of the site falls behind 96 Folders Lane and to the east of Folders Grove development. So Folders Grove development is a new development which has been constructed here, which was built by Jones Homes. So in terms of the actual site itself, the site is allocated in the site allocations DPD. This reference is SA12, it's shown here on the plan here. As part of the DPD, the application site or the built-up area boundary was amended. So the application site here is now falls within the built-up area of Burgess Hill. So the built-up area boundary is this dark black line here and goes around there. So it's in the built-up area of Burgess Hill now. In terms of the details, access will be taken from the existing Folders Grove development here. So it has access onto Folders Lane here, comes in, and then it will spur off to the east into the application site. The layout shows at the central and southern part a perimeter block approach with a perimeter road around the outside and the dwellings facing outwards. There'll be an apartment block here, which will have frontages on both sides to Folders Lane and within the development. And then there's a run of houses here, which will front into the development itself. A sub-feature on the western side of the site, as noted in terms of the existing boundary, vegetation will be retained. I mentioned that there will be 12 affordable houses. Those affordable houses will be made up of the apartment block in this location here, and also these properties in this location here. In terms of building heights, all the dwellings will be 2 stories in height. The blue structures shown here are garages, and the apartment block at the front will be 2.5 stories high, so utilising accommodation in the roof slope. In terms of parking, a total of 73 spaces are proposed. This will be made up of a mix of on-plot, garage, there's allocated parking in terms of the apartment block here, and the green spaces are visitors' spaces. Just in terms of some typical elevations, this is the apartment block, which is shown on the northern part of the site. You can see in terms of the two and a half story nature, the accommodation within the roof slope here. And then just some standard house types proposed through the development here and here. Then just moving on to the next couple of slides, just show some typical street scenes taken through the site. So this is the apartment block. Folders Lane is here, and then this is obviously back into the development. And then some wider ones that are going through the development. You can see in terms of how they sit in relation to each other, and in relation to the slight fall in the land itself. In terms of photographs, this is a view back towards the existing properties in Folders Lane here. This is looking westward towards the existing Folders Grove development. This is looking more sort of eastwards across the site, and this one is looking south towards the existing property, which sits to the south of the actual site. So, in terms of the actual application itself, you've got a detailed report in front of you setting out an assessment of all the relevant issues. The site is allocated for residential development for 40 dwellings within the development plan, and as such, the principle of development is acceptable. And again, just to note as well that the site does fall within the built-up area of Burgess Hill. The layout and design of the scheme is considered acceptable, and suitable conditions are suggested to control specific details of design. Furthermore, in respect of archaeology, accessibility, drainage and air quality can all be adequately controlled by conditions, and there will be no adverse impacts in respect of these matters. Matters associated with highway safety, parking, space standards and landscaping are also considered acceptable. The report sets out that in respect of the setting of the South Downs National Park, while it's recognised that the scheme will have an impact both in terms of landscape character and visual amenity, by the very nature of actually building on what is a greenfield site at this minute in time, this is not considered to be substantial, and the intervisibility between the two will be limited. It's also acknowledged that there will be an impact on the amenities of existing residents who either adjoin the site or the proposed access. But it's not considered that these impacts can be considered significant as set out in policy DP 26. Paras 12.34 to 12.46 deal with this matter in detail. So having regard for all the relevant issues, it's considered that the application complies with the development plan, and it's accordingly recommended for approval, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Ashdown. I've got 3 speakers. On my list it says Christy Marsh, but I assume Chris Durridge, are you speaking instead of? If you'd like to, you've probably been here long enough to now know where you've got to go. I don't think you'll get anywhere near your 2-minute mark, but you've got 2 minutes.
No problem. So yeah, Chris Dudridge, not Kirsty Marsh. We live at Ditchling Common at end of Folders Lane, where our 4.5 acre paddock borders the east boundary line of the proposed development site. The boundary is currently marked off with barbed wire fence, trees and bushes, and once those bushes are removed, it's going to be very open. As it stands, we currently oppose the development due to the antisocial issues that we've experienced with residents from phase 1 of the development using our woodlands as areas to congregate, where we've even submitted a number of pictures to Mid-Sussex Council of all of the rubbish that they leave behind. We've children, we've dogs, we use the field very regularly, and this is a real safety concern for us, which we're left assuming will get worse with the increased residents and closer proximity to the proposed phase. It's fair to note we would be unopposed to the development if the council can specify that there has to be a solid and permanent 8-foot fence in place on our adjoining boundary to ensure we are no longer unfairly and detrimentally affected by the development. It's important to note our ask is that they will not have direct access to our land, which they will do once the shrubs are removed as planned. There is a mesh fence stated in place to protect the trees and TPO protected routes during construction, but nothing stated for after construction to make it clear where the estate boundary is. I also question the accuracy of the tree assessment and overall plans for the removal of any trees.
Okay, thank you. I told you wouldn't do 2 minutes. When we start, I want you just to identify your paddock when we put up the site plan, but we'll wait the others to speak first. I take it you're Stephen Batchelor. Thank you.
I've been a resident of Folders Grove for over 3 years. As you will be aware, DP 41 states that surface water drainage schemes must be implemented in all new developments to avoid an increase in flood risk. The maintenance and management of drainage systems must also be identified through a plan secured by condition at planning stage. The proposed SA12, effectively Phase 2 site, is inextricably linked to Folders Grove, the Phase 1 site. They are contiguous and both sites are on a floodplain. All roads on Phase 1 experience surface water flooding on regular occasions. The grass areas adjacent to the proposed new Phase 2 access road are regularly waterlogged, and large areas of surface water are evident across the Phase 1 for sustained periods. Both Latchets and Hoadley are often flooded, even after moderate rainfall. Many residents have experienced significant flooding to their gardens, and even in the summer months, the land remains waterlogged. Much worse, a number of residents in Latchets have experienced internal flooding to the ground floors of their properties. Clearly, this is evidence that the existing Phase 1 sustainable drainage systems, including the water attenuation ponds, are inadequate and unable to cope with the level of surface water. The impact of further development will create significant harm to the residents and their properties. Therefore, should you be minded to approve the Phase 2 planning application, we request the following conditions are applied to the developer. The Phase 1 drainage issues will be rectified prior to commencement of any Phase 2 activities, and for Phase 2, the developer is required to strictly adhere to the flood risk conditions set out in the letter of 31st October from West Sussex Flood Risk Management Team. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor David Eggleton, who's the ward member for this part of the world. And for the benefit of members of the public, Councillor Eggleton is not subject to the 2 minutes, but he knows that we've had a long day and he's not going to speak forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So thank you for allocating some time for me to speak, and given the massive agenda before you, I'll try my best to be succinct. Now, while once again, as with SA 13, I am unable to object to the principle of development, given that Council already decided on this in 2022, even though I have concerns that this is the last field in the ward that is not a designated nature reserve, in this case, we must consider the aspirations expressed by the then Council in the Site Allocations DPD and ask ourselves whether the application you have before you achieves the objectives set out. I am not convinced it does, and I would therefore suggest respectfully a deferral pending a redesign that can achieve those objectives set out in the DPD, while also ensuring compliance with DP 41, DP 21, and DP 26. I have 3 main points that I would like to make. Firstly, and from the DPD, Council had the laudable aspiration of creating a public open green space on SA 12. Yet we see that over the time, as this application has evolved, this green space has likewise evolved into a SUDS, likely because of the challenging drainage situation on the site. Future residents will be expected to go over to the Folders Grove green space, as is their right, but it will put pressure on this green space in an area that lacks public open green space. They deserve their own provision. Secondly, the DPD also articulated the vision of safe and convenient cycling routes. Yet from the transport statement, no new investment in cycling infrastructure is proposed. Instead, to quote from the document, competent cyclists are expected to ride on Folders Lane, a busy major thoroughfare that is often extremely busy, especially during rush hour.
Now, I probably meet that definition of competent cyclist, but even I get nervous riding on Folders Lane at the pinch point, particularly by Stroudley Drive. For me, it often doesn't meet the test articulated in DP21 that such cycling infrastructure must feel and actually be safe. This issue also needs re-examining to ensure that cyclists along all of the developments across Folders Lane, and we do have quite a few at the moment, are catered for, and thereby ensure that all of our people, but especially our young people, have the choice of sustainable and independent travel options to prevent further severe and slight incidents between cyclists and motorists per the incident in the transport report. Thirdly, and lastly, I've had significant drainage-related casework with the residents in the immediate vicinity of this proposed development. Some of these are comparatively minor, like the entire width of roads turning into streams during light rain, likely even as we speak. Others just break your heart. I have been told and seen with my own eyes ground conditions that have led to voids under homes filled with multiple cubic meters of water. I've shared with the committee some photographs taken by myself and some residents within the last few weeks, with their permission, showing holes next to homes used to drain this water that have been unfilled for months at a time. Those voids have not been treated and are likely still there again, filling up even as we speak. Based on the topography of the Folders Grove Phase 1 development, this proposal before the committee risks making this situation significantly worse, and potentially, I am deeply concerned that the proposed block of flats for affordable housing is at risk of the exact same issue due to the SA12 topography. Please don't forget about DP26 and the right of existing and future residents to their amenity and safety in their own homes and the interrelatedness with DP41. If, however, the committee is minded to approve, I would like to request on behalf of residents, and as we've already heard, that you ensure that the risk of construction traffic coming into conflict with residents, particularly children playing on the existing green space, is minimised, and that you ensure that future residents will not be afflicted with the same risk of significant water ingress under their homes. I look forward to observing the rich and fruitful debate. Thank you.
No pressure then. Thank you, Councillor Egerton. Can I just ask you to just put up the that picture there, please, if you can? It's up. Oh, there it is there. Can I ask you just to point to which is your paddock?
Land boundary. Yeah.
So that field there?
Yeah. So it's everything from all the trees that are down this line, other than the small shrubs on that side, and the field that goes up there.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Henwood, I'm going to let you go first because you're the ward councillor.
Thank you. I would just like to point out reasons where this development conflicts with certain district plan policies. I agree, South allocation number 12 was agreed, so we support there has to be some development along that, but I would like to point out how I feel it is incompatible, particularly in several ways. If we start with DP 26, it actually states on page 180, 9.6, the site is located in a residential area. Folders Lane is a residential characterized by large detached dwellings in a large plot. So this 40 house development, I feel, is overdevelopment. It is not compatible with the present residences in Folders Lane. It states there, they're large plots. I'd also like to point out how DP 24 talks about provision of leisure. We've seen where the dedicated play area has now been converted into a pond, so that's not compatible with DP 24. DP 21 is transport. It would take you 25 minutes to walk into the town center. So DP 21 says we should minimize the use of cars. this will actually increase cars. The Design Guide 9 also says development should be proposed to reduce the use of the private car. So those are several reasons why I feel that this is overdevelopment. We agree it has to be development, there has to be some houses. But it's too dense. It's not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Also, I would like to look on page 194. 190, no, I don't think it's that particular one. 194. Let me just see if I can draw it up. Where we have the landscape consultant, actually at the top of that page, says he has concerns regarding the impacts on the landscape receptors. Number of valued features would be lost.
30-minute bus route.
So I would like the committee to consider, yes, this has to be built on, but I would like for us to consider, is this the best quality, the best design, and considering other factors such as the flood, the drainage problem. So if I can stop there, Chairman. Hello, Chairman.
I am listening, honestly, I'm having a debate with my vice chairman and my planning officer.
Okay, I'll stop there.
I'm multitasking. I'm a man. I'm a man, I can do this sort of thing.
Just repeat what I said.
Thank you very much.
Right, oh, you can't, all right, sorry. Right, okay. I could say something, but I think I might ask Mr. Ashdown, but this site is in compliance with all the relevant policies at the time when it was put in. Now, whether you agreed with it, if I recall rightly, you didn't vote for it, you voted against the DPD, if I recall, in this chamber. Good memory, haven't I?
I don't think that's relevant, Chair.
Oh, I think it was. Because this site was included with all the relevant policies within the district plan as it sat then. And the reason why DPD was put in, because the inspector at the time didn't agree that we could potentially meet the additional housing that he imposed on us. And it happened in my own village, well, a village that I represent, exactly the same. Didn't agree with it then, but unfortunately it's come in and we've got to live with it. The allocation for this site was 40, so therefore 40 is what was in here. It couldn't go to 41, but it could have gone to 39, but it went to 40. So it meets the actual site for this one. And if you look across the road on the map that you have in front of you, you can see the density along there is quite high in houses next to the railway station there, the railway line, should say. And from this site, you're quite right, you will be struggled to get from this site to the town centre in 25 minutes, unless you walk really, really fast. But if you just walk down the road a little bit to the Kingsway, bus route there is a 30-minute one direction and 30 minutes the other direction. That's where they come every 30 minutes. So I think you'll find you could possibly make it that way. And that is a little bit of walking and get on a bus. You're lucky you got buses, because we don't have buses in our part of the world. But so, yes, I do agree with what you're saying. Unfortunately, this allocation was cognizant of all the various DP things you just mentioned. Yeah, do you want to answer anything more? I think I've done a lot of it.
Sorry, no, just picking up, in terms of the specifics, in terms of what you said. So we need to remember that the site, so the allocation of the site is for 40 dwellings. The application is for 40 dwellings. So I appreciate your point about density, and you think that, essentially, it should replicate the larger plots that are shown on folders, front onto Folders Lane, but the site has been allocated at a density to show 40 dwellings, and that's what they are proposing. In terms of it's mentioned about the lack of play space. So the actual policy in terms of, SA 12, and I think it's set out in your report on page 186 to 187. So in terms of urban design principles, it's the second bullet point. It says provide an area of open space at the site entrance which integrates the public right-of-way and provide an open space buffer along the tree line boundary to the western side. So it doesn't say you need to provide a play area, it's providing open space. And certainly there is an open space buffer along that western boundary with the Suds Pond on the northern side of the access road, and then there is a buffer on the southern side as well, just with the perimeter road beyond. In terms of actual play facilities, a site of 40 dwellings may not normally give rise to the actual need for on-site provision, because you have to bear in mind, in terms of the facilities, you need to make any play facility have play value, and obviously the larger the site, the greater play value you can actually achieve. Your community leisure officer has commented on the application and is not raising an objection, subject to receipt of satisfactory financial contributions to enhance nearby off-site facilities, which will mitigate the demand from this development. In terms of, again, transport matters, obviously it's been accepted that this is a sustainable site because it's been allocated. So as part of that examination process, the inspector's been satisfied that the site is in a sustainable location. Again, the policy requires a sustainable transport strategy will require to identify sustainable transport infrastructure improvements, demonstrating how development will integrate with the existing network, providing safe and convenient routes for cycling, walking, etc. So that in part is making sure that residents from the site can access the existing network that may be in Folders Lane and beyond. The application has been considered by the Highways Authority, who are looking at these issues. They have not raised an objection, and in terms of, there is a financial contribution of just over £140,000, which is highlighted as TAD, which goes towards sustainable transport projects within the area. So they're satisfied that, that there is suitable connections from the site to the existing network, and that, again, it's about getting this site in itself could not justify significant off-site improvements, because all they need to do is mitigate the impact of their development. So by taking the financial sum, you have a bigger pot of money to spend on larger projects within the area to enhance the overall area, rather than just little areas. So I suppose, on those points, and the final point in terms of the landscape impact, then clearly we recognise that there is an impact, because you're building on what is essentially a green field at this minute in time. So there's going to be an impact. We've recognised that there is no overall objection in terms of the design layout, etc., from our urban designer. And in terms of suitable landscaping within the scheme itself, the site is recognised. There isn't great intervisibility in terms of the site in the wider area, and even if there was, the site has been allocated for development. So the overall principle of an impact visually in the wider area has been accepted. We can control the final detail of the landscaping through a condition. So again, we accept there's an impact, but that can be controlled and made mitigated through the actual planning conditions, Chairman.
Could you just mention the flood, the condition deals with that?
Yeah, so again, I know certainly raised through the large number of representations and from the speakers so far tonight. In terms of drainage, then we accept, and obviously it's clearly evidenced that there are existing issues in terms of phase one. You know, that is a separate matter from what you have in front of you today. The local lead flood authority have looked at this application extremely carefully, required a lot of information from the developer, and certainly in terms of the conditions that are set out, they will need to satisfy those conditions. They will, in terms of the discharge of those conditions, we consult with the local lead flood authority, and we won't discharge them until they're satisfied. And the conditions that they set out are, it's condition number 22 and 23. Certainly condition 22 is a lot more detailed than our standard drainage condition. And I think that reflects, in terms of the amount of detail that the local lead flood authority have looked at this application, and obviously being mindful of some of the issues that have been raised in the representations as well.
I'll allow you to come back, but unless anybody else unless you want to, you raised a lot of points.
No, I take on board, when this inspector agreed, site
And we
allocation 12.
didn't all agree with it, but we...
No, I accept that, but I would like to ask a query. I think it was quite important. I have visited phase one. I have seen the flooding and the water collecting under the houses. Is it at all possible to make sure that the questions, the problems to do with phase one, the drainage problems, are actually corrected before they start building on phase two? Because they are floodplains, they will exacerbate, you know, the drainage now. I mean, there are already 2 SUDs on phase one, and a very large one in one case that can overflow. So is there any way that we can do something like that, Chairman, before phase two starts?
I would like to say yes, but I'm probably going to be told I can't.
Well, short answer is correct. In terms of, yeah, you know, I appreciate, you know, issues have been highlighted about phase one, but they are matters that need to be resolved within the planning permission associated with phase one. This is a separate application. I appreciate it links in terms of the access road to the existing development, but this is a planning permission in its own right. There are no drainage reasons why you should not, why you should refuse this application tonight, given the comments you have from the local lead flood authority. So, you know, they are set. You have to decouple the issues. That we can't hold up development if granted on this particular application because of any outstanding issues or problems on the earlier phase.
I think what you can do is request the officer who did the first phase to, with our drainage officer, to go down and talk to the developer about it, because clearly there is an issue. Because when I visited the site, yes, I could see water, because obviously you can get onto the site, park along the road. But yes, it is. I agree with you. I can't not agree with you, because there is water there. But what we can't say is this development, you can't say this can't go ahead because you haven't cleared out that other side. So what we've got to do is, with yourselves as ward councillors, have got to speak to the lead. All right, you have. Well, in that case, let's speak afterwards on that one, because I think that you know, we can't hold up phase two because of problems in phase one. But I do think that there is an issue there, and I totally support you. Because when I went down and saw it, luckily it hadn't been raining, but you could still see the puddles everywhere. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, it's on the very same point, so I was going to try and resolve it by asking a question for Steve. Is the council taking any action at present over phase one? Is it already speaking to that developer, the same developer, for this proposal, and asking them for effective action? Is that happening right now?
Can I just?
I think that can safely say, I think we all agree with that. My vice chairman, because I think you're going to ask exactly the same thing, and so's Councillor Cherry.
Well, as council's making a decision on this, we're dealing with the same developer. There must have been conditions attached to that planning permission when it was granted relating to drainage, which don't seem to be being enforced. It doesn't fill us with any great confidence in dealing with a similar application from the same developer when the same issues actually come up. I mean, I can understand the separation between the two applications, but it does leave one with a heavy heart having to vote in favour or against an application when you've seen what's gone before and what the current situation is, as we've heard from Mr Batchelor, Councillor Eggleton and others.
And yourself as well, Councillor. I do think that we've got to separate, but I think we can have an outside conversation about it, and we can, as chairman of the planning committee and my vice chairman, yourselves, I think we ought to start to put some pressure, personally. Councillor Cherry, you're next.
Right, I'd just like to look at something slightly different, but nevertheless very important. On page 188 of the report, 12.4, it's stated that Burgess Hill is a Category 1 settlement and is characterised by a comprehensive range of employment, retail, health and education.
I know where you're going to
go. You know where I'm going with this. As regards health facilities, this is not the case. And you'll be well aware, because of the King's Weald loss of the medical centre that was planned there, the east of Burgess Hill is not well served with medical facilities. And we lost King's Weald because NHS Sussex were offered a better deal from the Brookley development. So we've had to go along with that. On the 22nd of November, two of my local Burgess Hill County councillors were invited to a site visit to the Brookley development. And if you'll forgive me, I'd like to read the email that they sent to me after this. It said the visit consisted of a short presentation followed by a tour of some of the features of the Brookley site. For example, we were shown where the new secondary school would be and the site of the new sports facility. We did not, however, see any site for the location of the new health facility. With knowledge of the failure of the King's Weald Croft development's history, we had a distinct feeling of déjà vu for the following reasons. One, unlike other infrastructure features, the school and the sports centre, for example, no spontaneous mention of the health centre was made during the presentation. When we did raise it, we were told that it was, quote, difficult, that they were in negotiations with the Integrated Care Board, that the Integrated Care Board were very difficult to deal with. The Homes England were to provide the land for the site, but had yet to do so, and there was no mention of who would pay for the build. And I was also told...
Is it much to read? Because,
no, I'm just finishing.
Okay.
I was also told that there was a national shortage of doctors, which also made things very difficult. So I would then return to the state of Burgess Hill currently with health facilities. Now, I remember Wes Streeting actually saying a few weeks ago that with the building of any new homes, infrastructure always comes first. And he actually said, no new houses without the infrastructure to go with them. Well, I'm sorry to say that currently the medical facilities offered for Burgess Hill are totally inadequate and really will not meet the needs of any new housing developments.
Clearly he hasn't spoken to Angela, because Angela wants the houses, so. Yeah, that's not being facetious, it's very true. But you and I know that we have got the Integrated Care Board coming back at some point to explain why they've done what they've done. Because we have said, this committee asked me to write, and I did, and they've come once and they've now agreed to come back, but I can't say what day or what meeting it's going to be. But they will be coming back, and it will be a session that we had, because I understand you asked all good questions last time. And I couldn't make it, but I understand Councillor Kenny asked the same questions as well. So I agree. I mean, you've got me on your side there, because I was really angry King's Will didn't go ahead.
No, and if it had gone ahead...
This would have been okay.
This would have been okay, but we've got so much development, particularly on the eastern side of Burgess Hill, and there's no doctors.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
And it doesn't even, we don't even know whether there's going to be anything at Brookley.
Well.
So, you know, it can't go on. There comes a time when this balloon is going to burst.
Yeah.
So, I rest my case.
Can you see?
I just come back, you know, obviously I'm aware in terms of the Brookley scheme, that then, you know, that you know, the provision of a medical centre is being considered as part of one, I think it might be the Western Neighbourhood Centre. You know, in terms of, it's still sort of early discussions in terms of the preparation of the details. So we haven't had that application yet, but clearly, you know, that is in the forefront of discussions from, you know, officers, the Homes England and the developers in relation to that particular plot, because, you know, as you said, for all the reasons that have been set out and talked, you know, in not only tonight but in previous applications where we've had in terms of King's Will, then we know that, and as officers, then, you know, we're working with the developers to try and make sure that we can get a new facility within Burgess Hill. Just in respect of this application, it's only 40 dwellings, so it doesn't actually meet the threshold of actually requiring a financial contribution for health. So a health contribution is only required for developments of 50 or more units. And in terms of the Category 1 settlement status, that's from the district plan in terms of our hierarchy, in terms of, so our 3 towns are Category 1 settlements purely because of the very nature of the facilities that go along with it. So that is something that comes from the district plan and the overall strategy in terms of the housing strategy that council adopts in terms of where it looks to allocate development in terms of its category 1, 2, 3 and 4 towns and villages.
Yeah.
Could I just slightly come back?
Of course you can. That's your one time coming back.
Yes, I'd heard actually that there were thoughts to move the Brookley Medical Centre much further west, because to make allowances for the western arc that will be planned. But obviously that's moving it further and further away from Burgess Hill, and it's not relevant for residents in Burgess Hill, particularly the east of Burgess Hill, if it's stuck right over, you know, on the western arc, and it's going to be, that medical centre will be serving that community. It's not going to be serving Burgess Hill. So Burgess Hill needs a new medical centre, and somebody's got to provide it.
Yeah. I think you can safely say, when the Kingsmill one came in, I don't think I detected a single person in this room who agreed with that.
No.
But it was what it was.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right, councillor, thank you. Could you switch up to councillor de Bell? Are you still wishing?
So much, Mr Chairman.
Could you press your button?
I think what we've, oh, sorry.
That's right, don't touch it.
Okay, thank you, sir. No, I think what we've heard tonight from a number of sources is a story of failure to communicate with this particular developer. Now, nobody's blaming the officers. We have to take each individual planning application we know, and if it meets the required standards, you can't refer back, or you're not supposed to refer back and say, well, you haven't done this, you made a mess of that, you've left land being used all over the place and dumped on, you haven't got proper barriers, the land gets flooded and people get real problems in their homes. Now, we've all seen situations like this. Maybe this tonight is a bit of a watershed, and we're saying we need to say to developers, we won't take this anymore. And maybe we should, as you said yourself, Mr Chairman, maybe we should go back and say, well, until you actually stop speaking with full tongue and start communicating and doing what you're supposed to do, yes, you will stop. We will stop you from developing. And maybe tonight we should be saying, no, we're not going to take it anymore. So I would like to propose that we do just that. I know you're looking at me like that, Mr Chairman.
The trouble is, it's an allocated site. It's an allocated site, John. And the problem we've got, and I think we take this off grid, as they say, with the two ward councillors. I've got head of planning here, and myself, vice chairman, and you're more welcome to come up after the meeting. We need to thrash this out. We need to get some proper remedial work done on phase one, but that shouldn't be the reason to refuse phase two, even though they do speak with, as you said, I didn't.
I take your leave, Mr Chairman, and in all things.
Okay. Councillor Bashir.
Yes, Chairman, my question is, how do you expect as Chairman councillors make a decision when we hear about the developer keep doing the same thing? Isn't it difficult for us to make a decision? I can understand it's individual cases, but whereas if you look at previous records, shouldn't we be now doing something and not relating to the other, same developer doing things? How do you expect us as a councillor when we hear all these stories and to say yes or no?
Yeah,
Thank you, Chairman.
I can sympathise totally, but unfortunately, all the misgivings and the misuse of what they did on phase one shouldn't cloud what's happening on phase two. This is a separate application, and we will deal with it separately, even though we know phase one there are some faults. But we will have a discussion, I promise you that, before we leave this room tonight, after everybody's gone, we will have a discussion to try and see if we can get something done, because we need to get something done. Because I do think that they can't do this anymore.
Absolutely, well said.
And, I'm very fortunate in the people I've had in my ward who built have not let us down quite like you've been let down on phase one. And let's face it, I had a really big one up in Peace Cottage, 630 houses. So, Councillor Kenny.
Right.
Sanity.
Two things. One is I'll end with a proposal as a way of action that we could take. But I'd like to start by supporting Councillor Cherry and the points that she made. I'm very sorely tempted to reject this proposal on the grounds of no infrastructure for health. And it was extremely disturbing to hear that one of the statements made when there were the discussions at Brooklyn was, oh, well, it was a gift of the land, not the build cost. That's going to sound familiar to us because it's not a million miles away from what the story was at Kingsmead itself, where it was touted that there would be a provision, and it turned out on that very point, you can have the land, but you can't have it built. So I'm really concerned about that, but I won't. because
That's
I'm
good,
not
because
minded.
I've just had a shake of a head from a representative from the Northern Heart off on your right shoulder who didn't agree with that statement.
But I'm not going to recommend that because this is an allocated site. But here's what I propose we do, because we need to approve allocated sites, but we should defer this application.
What for?
The developer should be under no illusions whatsoever that there needs to be some action on phase one before it is finally approved. It's not because we don't intend to. So I'm not in favour of rejecting, but I'm in favour of putting some pressure on the developer to sort out phase one.
I don't think we can withhold or defer a separate application to justify the work that needs to be done on phase one. I think if they took us to appeal, I will not be the one proposing, it's the people who propose are going to have to stand in front of a public inquiry and argue that case, because if you propose and they defer it and they appeal for non-determination, which is what they will probably do, the people who do it have got to go in front of it. If they go for a public inquiry and it's within their right, you will be compelled to stand in front of a planning inspector. I think we should do what is suggested, approve this site as per the recommendation, and then we will, in conjunction with, I've just assured the two ward councillors, we will have a little debate about this of how we can get this done, because clearly there is a massive problem in phase one with the drainage, and that has to be sorted out. But you can't use phase one as a reason to punish them by not approving phase two. I hear where you're coming from, but unfortunately, I just really, in all the 21 years I've been on the planning committee, I sympathise, but we would get slaughtered in an appeal, absolutely slaughtered, and whoever does the approved, recommendation and the seconder, they will be expected to justify that in front of a planning inspector in a public inquiry.
So can I come back?
Go on.
Yeah, because
I'm not trying to frighten you.
No,
I'm
no.
just telling you.
Well, actually, you know what? Really, that's what the officers and that's what the council do all the time, and it is extremely tiresome. So I've sat through planning meetings where we have, in the face of, there will be an appeal against this, and Deputy Chair will be very well aware of the example I'm talking about, where we, failed to oppose it when it was the wrong thing to do, when we should have opposed it. Now, that other case was clearer cut than this, and I'm not going to vote against this proposal tonight, but it's becoming a very tired argument, and I think I speak for quite a lot of councillors to say we're fed up with this constantly being put us, be scared of a developers. Let's see that developer explain how they expect to have the confidence of the council to complete the current application when they have failed. Let's see how that plays out in an appeal. To stand there, maybe it would be me, stand and say, I had every grounds to be less than confident about this developer's ability to build it out successfully because of the experience. So, anyway, I've gone on a bit, but
no, I know where you're coming from.
We need a counter-argument.
I know we do, and I agree with you, but rest assured, when we had the problem with the King's Will, I took the will of the committee, I did as asked, I did write to the monitoring officer and the head of planning, the assistant chief executive, and we got some action. So I will do exactly the same this time regarding phase one. Okay, and rest assured, I'm exasperated like you are, because I do believe that a lot of the developers think they're gods and they can do what they want. And reality is, people live in those houses that they think, and if they can't sort it out, then they shouldn't be in the business of building. That's my view of it, but not all developers are like that. Councillor Hitchcock.
Question for Steve, please. Steve, in this massive paper I've got in front of me, which I can't find where I want to be.
Just give us a clue.
Can I please ask you if there is a verification procedure within the condition for the drainage system before it becomes operational?
(226).
Okay.
I think.
And the second part of the question is, who would normally carry that out?
We would.
Okay. That would be us, I guess.
I would suggest if you're asking somebody to look at the drainage system, make sure the drainage system's being built as approved, then that needs to be somebody with a technical knowledge of drains for a start, rather than dare I say, a planning officer. But just looking at, there's condition 22 and 23, prior to commencement. So there's certainly, there is no verification within that. I'm just trying to read all the various bullet points very quickly. Obviously, there's an ongoing management plan to show in terms of obviously maintenance, etc. That will so that's there in terms of making sure that it's adequately managed in the future.
That's 23. That is
25 starts off prior to the first use. They detail
that is in. No, you're quite right. Pending the first verification report has been implemented in accordance. No, you're quite right.
Okay.
Yes, so there is.
Because that's something new that's come into our.
Well, that, as you say, these are a set of comments and a set of conditions that we've had from the local lead flood authority, who are now leading on the major applications.
Well, I think what that does is give us a small level of comfort.
because we didn't used to have this, did we? We didn't used to have this amount.
No, we didn't. And which means that the system can be checked out before people are actually resident.
Yeah, and if you go to 23, there is a water management plan there as well. And but you're right.
So
Condition 25 is the one.
Can I propose that we then move on with this and make a decision?
Yeah.
Because I talked about it.
Okay, I've got Councillor Kennedy and then Councillor Brown.
This is just a very quick point. We've had Mr. Duddridge speak to us about fencing. I haven't heard anything said about that, particularly with the problems he's had with his adjoining property being
Can we just put up
infiltrated.
the plan, that plan you got there?
Be good to have just some information on that, please. Although an 8-foot fence seems a little high to me.
12.
Yeah.
6 foot is not
I mean, your piece of land has got a road going alongside it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no gardens backing on it, which I thought there was when I first looked at it.
So in terms of, condition 13 requires the submission of hard and soft landscaping details, which will include means of enclosure if there isn't a separate one. I think so. It's covered by that. So they're likely to be some form of boundary, enclosure along there. However, from a planning point of view, I'm not sure. We need to be able to justify whatever we'd ask for in part of that, as long as the boundary is secure in terms of be it appropriate, whether it's a fence, but I'm not sure an 8-foot high fence would be justifiable. Another way of dealing with that, a more softer, in terms of planting sort of hawthorn hedges, natural, which obviously become a natural barrier in their own right. So ultimately there's different ways to skin the cat in that respect. But that would be looked at as part of the discharge of that planning condition.
I would like to see hawthorn. You try going through a hawthorn bush.
That's what's there presently.
Is there?
And it's been dug out and a hollow has been created.
Okay, right, okay. I shouldn't have allowed you to say anything, but hawthorn would be my first choice of thing. Okay, yeah, I think, and I've got one more, Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much. Looking at condition 22, we can have a bit of confidence because it says prior to the commencement of the development, and it goes on to say all the things that should be done. And Councillor Hitchcock is asking, you know, who's going to do that, I think, and it isn't clear. And also we're getting sort of a mixed message from Steve Ashdown, who keeps talking about the local lead flood authority. I'd like to correct it. It's the lead local flood authority, and the lead local flood authority is the county council. Thank you. That's my understanding. And that's why I'd expect to see the expertise to resolve this from the county council, not from the district council, who I won't go on any more about my opinion of the drainage officers. So I think this is, on one hand, it's all written here, but in reality, is it going to happen? Because it doesn't lead you from here to the county council lead local flood authority. And I really don't, I like the chairman's idea of a nice little huddle getting together with ward councillors, but in reality, that doesn't have any strength either.
Well, I don't know, I can write to the planning officer expressing the wish of the committee, who then internally will write to the lead flood officer, because I don't believe all these conditions were in place when phase one came along. If phase one had come along and had all this lot, you wouldn't have half the problems you've got.
I'm sure they were.
And I think as a result of what happened, but that doesn't help phase one at this point in time. So I will write on behalf of what the committee asked me to write to the planning officer, who will say, get the lead flood authority, which is county council, get down there and sort of create merry hell.
Well, that's kind of you, and I guess that is the best that the committee can do on that. But we're still back to the situation that this isn't really spelt out crystal clear here in 22 and 23. It's all good stuff, but who's going to do it? I'd like to see that. I can't find lead local flood authority anywhere in that, in all of that diatribe. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, those planning conditions, so conditions 22, 23, 24 and 25 are all from the lead local flood authorities. They're West Sussex. So when we have those details in, we will consult West Sussex because it's their conditions. They are the authority that's responsible for it. So we will take their advice before those conditions are discharged. So we'll only discharge it when they're happy with them.
Thank you very much.
I think that's about the best we can do on that. But I will write, if the will of the planning committee is for me to write, and I will do that. And that means he's then got to consult with the lead flood authority, and they will put pressure on the developer. Right, have I got a proposer for this site, please, this application? Councillor Sweatman, do I have a seconder? Councillor Hitchcock. Yeah. No, Councillor Hitchcock beat you. Right, remember, in your head, you can't use phase two to punish phase one.
No.
Okay. Right, can we have the vote in green if you agree, red if you don't, and amber, yellow if you... Right, I've got 10. 9 for, 1 abstention, so therefore that has been granted. And I will take on board, if you want me to, I will write to the officer dealt with in the first application on phase one to put the pressure on to West Sussex. Yeah, okay, fine, thank you. Now I'm going to jig this around a little bit because it's unfair. It's unfair for our speaker because item 10's got no speakers, but I do have a couple of speakers for item 11. So it's only fair to... Do you want to stay, David, so we can sort it out?
I can just go and find the officer, because I'm not dealing with that. I've got to find Joe.
Okay.
Joe Swift, yeah.
Okay.
For 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Oh, no, it's not.
And Rainin. I- Sorry, caught you out, Joe. You just, you've got speakers. We're going with the speakers first. Blimey. There's a face from the past. Somebody said to my name. Somebody said Gary. No? No, they didn't. Did you say something?
I didn't.
Did you say something? Did you say Gary? No? Okay, I'm going deaf. Got fed up with Singapore, did we? Right, for the benefit of anybody watching, I'm switching around item 11 and item 10, because in item 10 there are no speakers, and I've got speakers here for item 11. It's only fair to see them through and then go to one which I haven't got. So we've got DM 240487 Woodfield House, Essex Lane, Burgess Hill, and I hope you'll be happy with this application. Joe, canter through it, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just take members quickly through the update sheets. We've had some additional comments from the Mid-Sussex District Council Housing Enabling Officer. And just to summarise, 2 of the units, plots 11 and 12, will be first homes, and the remaining 7 units will be provided for social or affordable rent. In regards to condition 5, it's quite lengthy, so I won't read it all out in detail, but there's been slight amendments in agreement with the lead local flood authority on the drainage condition. And finally, condition 29 has just been amended slightly, just so it doesn't impede this development from carrying on.
Yeah, okay.
The application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of Woodfield House and the erection of 30 dwellings with associated access, open space, landscaping and parking. The application site is shown outlined in red. The western boundary is marked by Isaac's Lane.
It's not showing.
It's not showing. Aidan, can you do your magic? Oh, it's back, we're here. We are got it.
So I'll start that bit again. So the
Yeah,
application site is shown outlined in red, and the western boundary marks the boundary with Isaac's Lane. To the north, we have the residential dwelling, Woodfield Farm, and a commercial property. The eastern boundary joins on to a site that has approval for a secondary school, which is part of the wider Brookley development. And to the south, there's a parcel of land, a residential parcel of land, which is currently under development, under construction, which again is part of the wider Brookley development. And as you can see on the plan on the right, the site is allocated, so it now becomes part of the built-up area boundary, and clearly you can see in the buff colour, it identifies the wider Brookley development which surrounds it on 3 sides. Outline planning permission has previously been granted on this site in 2020 for 30 dwellings with its own separate access off Isaac's Lane. The site has subsequently been acquired by Homes England, and instead of being a standalone development, it is now being brought forward as an integrated part of the wider Brookley development. Access is now proposed direct through the development parcel to the south instead of directly off Isaac's Lane. And as shown by the plan on the right, we can see the layout of how the dwellings will look. The proposal seeks to maintain the established trees along the northern, western and southern boundaries, and with 2 mature trees forming part of an area of open space at the entrance to the development. All the dwellings will be 2-storey in height, with the associated garages being single-storey as per the height plan on the left, which identifies the 2-storey in the pink colour. And the application will be providing 9 affordable units as identified to the southwestern part of the site. As mentioned, 7 of these units will be provided for social or affordable rent, and 2 will be provided as first homes in line with the updated housing officer's comments. This means the scheme is fully in compliance with the Affordable Housing Policy DP31. And although the affordable housing is clustered to the southwestern corner, as it's not a cluster of more than 10 units, this is in line with the Affordable Housing SPD. The following is the landscape plan, which shows the proposal would include a native planting along the northern boundary to enhance the boundary's green corridor. As previously mentioned, the trees are to be retained along the western boundary and strengthened with additional planting. And on the right-hand side, we can see a comparison plan. So just to identify, the pink dots marked were the trees to be removed by the outline consent. They were proposing to remove 35 trees per the outline consent, 3 groups of trees, and a partial removal of two groups of trees. The access itself required the removal of 11 trees, together with a further 16 trees for the visibility displays. So although there will still be the loss of some trees, this is reduced from the outline consent, with the established tree belt along Isaacs Lane being retained, and the new access is going to be relocated, joining through the development parcel to the south. Furthermore, the council's tree officer has not objected to this proposal. In addition, following change to the legislation, the proposal would also be providing a 10% BNG biodiversity net gain from a mixture of on-site and off-site measures. The ecology consultant has recommended approval subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A. And in line with the site's allocation, the pond, which is located at the southern part of the site, is to be retained, and the area of informal play will be created to the eastern part of the site, and it will also include suds features into the landscaping. The following plans just show members the design of each of the house types. So any of you that have driven along Isaacs Lane will notice that these dwellings are very similar to the dwellings that are currently under construction by Bellway. So obviously this is going to be very visually integrated with the existing development taking place. And I'll just flick through a few of these to show you. The application has been supported by an energy statement. Full details are set out on page 333 of my report. But just to note, the developer is adopting a fabric-first approach. The dwellings would all have air source heat pumps, and they would exceed Part L of the building regulations.
Bless you.
Bless you. These are just the bin stores and garages details. And finally, we have some photos for context. The first 2 here are of Woodfield House. So the next 2 are part of the garden. And as you can see in the background of the second photo, there's this development part of Brookley beyond the development, this site boundary. And finally, the last two photos are from Isaacs Lane, where we can see the existing site access for Woodfield House. You can obviously see that there is established vegetation along this boundary. And also just like to highlight with the second photo that there is fairly limited visibility with this bend coming in and the speed of the road. Obviously, this current proposal is no longer seeking access from Isaacs Lane. The main reasons are set out in the report, but just to highlight a few key points. This is an allocated site. Affordable housing is being provided in line with the current policy requirements. The proposal will be providing 10% biodiversity net gain. There is a reduction in tree loss from this proposal in comparison to the outline consent. The proposal would be providing a development that is now integrated into the wider Brookley development, with the access through the development parcel to the south, as required by the site's allocation DPD, and it will also benefit from the infrastructure improvements such as the Green Circle, Green Superhighway, as well as the schools and the neighbourhood centres proposed as part of the Brookley development instead of a standalone isolated development.
Oh, it is.
The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions listed in Appendix A and the completion of a satisfactory legal agreement to secure the necessary affordable housing, infrastructure provision and biodiversity net gain. There is a recommendation B that if the applicants have not submitted a satisfactory signed Section 106 legal agreement or legal undertaking securing the necessary infrastructure payments, affordable housing and biodiversity net gain by the 5th of March 2025, then permission should be refused at the discretion of the Assistant Director for Planning and Sustainable Economy for the following reasons. In the absence of a completed satisfactory legal agreement, the application fails to provide adequate infrastructure contrary to policy DP 20 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan. Reason 2, in the absence of a completed satisfactory legal agreement, the application fails to secure 30% affordable housing contrary to policy DP 31 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan. And finally, in the absence of a completed satisfactory legal agreement, the application fails to secure 10% biodiversity net gain, contrary to policy SHN and SA 17 of the Mid-Sussex Site Allocation TPT. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. I have two speakers. Can I call Nicholas Minor, the applicant? Well, you've been here long enough now to know what you've got to do.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Nicholas Milner and I'm the planning lead for Brookley at Homes England. Homes England is a landowner and joint applicant for this full planning application for 30 homes, including 9 homes as affordable, associated landscaping, open space and car parking. Homes England is a master developer for Brookley, and Bellway is one of our developer partners who's delivering Phase 1B, which is adjacent to Woodfield House. Woodfield House was acquired by Homes England in 2022 for active place shaping reasons, so Woodfield House was not an isolated residential enclave. The design has been considered in the context of Brookley and integrated into Phase 1B. The design of the homes are of similar appearance to Bellway's Phase 1B. Homes England is committed to ensuring 10% BNGs delivered at Woodfield House and in line with Brookley's BNG requirements and national legislation. Homes England is providing off-site provision within Brookley to enable Bellway to meet 10% BNG as the on-site provision falls just short by a very small percentage. It is important to note that Brookley will deliver an estimated 200,000 new trees and shrubs, and Homes England is predicted to provide a 23% overall biodiversity net gain. Woodfield's House BNG will be secured by appropriate legal mechanisms, and discussions are well in advance to enable the completion of the Section 106 following determination.
30 seconds.
Through positive pre-application advice with MSDC, Bellway have designed 30 homes which meets the policies in the district plan and overarching aims at Brookley, including design guide and sustainability. Homes England considers Bellway's proposal will create a high-quality, sustainable addition to the district, which exceeds both national and local planning policy. We support the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you for listening.
Down to the last couple of seconds. Well done. I'd like to call Julian Goodban, who's speaking in support of this application.
Yep.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Julian Goodban. I'm the Planning Director for Bellway Homes. As previously mentioned, Bellway are already developing at Brookley under the branding of Fallowwood View. This comprises a total of nearly 250 dwellings, and we already have a show home built and 7 properties are now sold and occupied. The now lapsed planning permission access the site directly from Isaacs Lane, as previously mentioned. However, as Fallowwood View is adjacent to the site, this put us, Bellway, in the unique position to facilitate an access from Fallowwood View rather than directly from Isaacs Lane. This was something your officers were keen for us to explore at the outset, and as a result, it's generated a significant benefit for the proposal when compared with the previous planning permission. It improves integration, permeability and legibility within the wider Brookley development and provides future residents with easier pedestrian and cycle access to the facilities provided at Brookley and beyond. It also, as previously mentioned, allows the retention of many more trees within the site. This new point of access has also enabled us to improve the design and positively meet good design planning principles by creating a layout featuring a central focal area of public open space with the houses set around it, allowing direct outlook facing onto it. This then creates a spacious and legible development with good opportunities, thank you, for recreation, landscaping and interaction between residents. Layout supported by high quality, energy efficient dwellings, all with EV charging points and air source heat pumps. To conclude, through working with officers, we believe that we've realised our unique opportunity to improve the site's former permission and create a high quality sustainable development. We very much hope that you're able to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, for those of us who remember the previous application, this is a vast improvement, because I think we all voiced concerns about coming out onto Isaacs Lane, and the fact now that they've integrated it in with the Greater Northern Art Bellway scheme, and the fact we've saved so many trees, it's regrettable that one good specimen has to go, but I take it you are they're going to close off that picture you showed us at the end and replant there as well, the entrance into Woodfield House. Joe?
Yep, so the existing access, there's a condition for that to be closed, and we obviously have a landscaping condition for details to be submitted and approved, so obviously we can ensure appropriate replanting.
Brilliant. Well, to be perfectly honest, does anybody wish to debate it? Because I do think, okay. You're not allowed to vote.
No,
Okay.
I want to have a question.
Go on.
I'm very curious about this new term that suddenly appeared under leisure and recreation on page 320. 12.77 says, play on the way features are incorporated. Now, is that, we had tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. What is play on the way? Thank you.
Ask your portfolio holder, he might know, because I haven't got a clue.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Yep, so as part of the proposal, there is an informal open space, so it's just to incorporate any sort of like play equipment, you get like a balance beam or stepping stones. It's just to incorporate that, and we have a condition to secure the details. It's just a feature within the open space.
Yeah, that's a new one on me as well, but hey ho, we all learn every day. Right, does anybody else wish to speak? Nope, can I have a proposer please? Councillor Sweatman and my vice chairman. Seconder, and can we vote in the normal way, please? Green for. Yep, that's it. Unanimous. Well done. Sorry you had to wait. So there's not much we could do about it, but this is an unusual. We don't normally have this on our planning. this amount of controversial ones. Right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sally. Nice to see you again. Consultant, she's taking a while. She's on pregnancy. What do you call it? That's the one.
I thought she'd gone to Singapore.
She did, no, she was, her husband had a year out there, I think.
Oh, I thought it was permanent. It doesn't matter.
It's good to see him, thank you. Oh, yes. Yes, we're going back to number 10. This yours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. You'll be happy to know we're on our last item, which is item 10. DM 240036 Greensleeves, Tiltwood, Hop House Lane, Crawley Down. We have no speakers, so Steve.
Thank you, Chairman. That's right. Just a couple of things in terms of the update. There is additional informative in relation to a matter that I think we've discussed quite a lot so far tonight, drainage ditch. So there's an informative about that. And there's something else that we've spotted in recommendation B on page 264. It refers to March 2024. Obviously, that should be 2025. So,
That's not your application, though, is it?
It's not, but I did sign the report off. So, yeah, moving swiftly on. In terms of the scheme, it's an outline scheme sought for the erection of two chalet bungalows on the land to the rear of Greensleeves. So the application site is red here. Greensleeves is the property highlighted blue. In terms of, as it's an outline, in terms of the matters that you are considering tonight, you're considering the matters of access, scale, appearance and layout. So the only thing that's not in front of you tonight is landscaping. So that's the only reserved matter that can be considered at a later date. As already stated, the site is in the rear garden of Greensleeves, which is a detached property on the northeastern side of the Tiltwood estate. Important to note that the site is designated as countryside in the district plan. So again, just another site plan. Access is going to be taken from the existing drive for Greensleeves, so the access will come in on the north of Greensleeves to serve the two properties. Both properties will have their own integral garage. I think that's probably all I need to say on that one. So in terms of the elevations, so in terms of plot 1 and plot 2, traditional chalet bungalow, utilising dormer windows in the roof, and you can see the integral garage on the side. Some existing photos of the site, obviously the existing property here and the garden that will actually form the application site. Again, I think important to note as well is the existing development that surrounds the property. Again, in terms of the assessment, it's similar in respect of the Walnut Marches application earlier. There is a conflict with the district plan in terms of DP12 and DP15 because it's in the countryside. However, again, we think there are material considerations which mean you can approve it tonight despite that conflict. So the conflict is one of principle. However, particularly around DP12 is there to protect the intrinsic beauty of the countryside. And certainly it's our view that the site is located in a conclave of development. There's been numerous planning permissions and extant permissions within the Tiltwood estate, and there was a planning permission on this site for one dwelling. So this isn't an isolated site in the countryside, and development and the proposed development, in our view, would not impinge on the intrinsic beauty or openness of the countryside. So in that element of DP12, we say it does comply, but it doesn't comply because it doesn't meet the need in terms of an agricultural dwelling, etc. On all other matters, in terms of the design, in terms of highways, in terms of impact on residential amenity, in terms of drainage, there are no other issues. Everything else we're happy with. So while we recognise there is a technical breach of DP12 and DP15, we're satisfied that overall, when you look at the scheme overall, and the site-specific schemes of its location, there are other material considerations which do allow you or certainly allow us to say to you that we think it's acceptable, and we recommend approval on that basis, Chairman.
Thank you. It's a good sized plot, and what is really welcome is they're not 4 or 5 bedroom houses, which is one thing. But I will go to the ward councillor, Councillor Hitchcock.
Thank you very much. I think generally speaking, we've got no issues with this proposal, other than one.
What, flooding?
Well, other than 2, actually.
Oh, should have said that.
As Steve said, that there were no issues with the drainage. In terms of the planning process, there are no issues with the drainage, but on site there are. The previous development, which sat to the south of this, was for 3 houses, and it discharges in a ditch which runs inside the boundary of the proposed application until it meets the house to the north. And from there on, there is no ditch. Okay? So the question I've been asking Steve and various other planning officers is, where do we go if the applicant can't demonstrate that this ditch flows to the open waters, the local collection system? Where do we go? Because at the moment, following a visit with Sue Dewberry and a drainage officer, it was suggested that it will be the problem of the people downstream because they hadn't got a ditch. There is no ditch. There has never been a ditch in the 25 years that the residents who are getting flooded at the moment have been there. There is no ditch as far as the other landowner associated with this is concerned, and she's lived there for 50 years. And some of the residents consider that what's happened is that the previous developer has ripped up the old footpath which led from the stables to the back of the house so that the Irks couldn't walk through the front garden. It's a simple problem to overcome. It's not a planning problem, but I'm just stating this because we're going to see more and more issues of drainage being required to go straight into the countryside. The further we get out from the centre of our developments, the more and more issues we're going to have with drainage. And we've seen 5 of them tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one moan. I'm going to try and manage that locally. Steve very kindly had a look at the conditions and has put that statement into the informative. And that informative will require the developer to come up with the right information to prove that this system will drain to the water network.
You happy with that?
I'm very happy with that. I'm very pleased with that, and on that basis I can support this, okay? The other statement I want to make is over the last 7 years, Tiltwood has gone from being a house, large house, in 3 compartments, and several surrounding buildings. In the last 7 years, it's had 18 new properties on it. And with these 2, it will be 20, and we have not seen one social house.
Yeah.
This has been drip feed development, and I think we as a planning committee have to stop that sort of development. And the NPPF quite clearly states that selective drip feed development will not be accepted. And it's happened.
I would probably been on the planning committee that has given planning permission on those previous 18.
Okay,
and
end
we
of-
have
end
raised.
of moan.
And it's a moan we all had because we knew it was being drip fed, but we can't do anything about it. They're not prepared to release the land, but it is an absolute travesty that we've had now up to 20 units and no affordable housing, and you get very, very few anything benefit other than another house.
Yeah.
But we had lots of moans when it used to be the old Northern Planning Committee and the Planning A and now this committee, and we've all agreed this is wrong. There must be a way we can do it. but, yeah, go on, yeah. John, could you-
Just on that point, clearly, we're a developer is in the same ownership or it's the same developer and they subvertly and openly subdivide a site and submit two applications, then we have in the past required affordable housing. We would look at it as one development. So, but it has to be in the same ownership or the same developer. And I don't know the full history, but I don't think all of these sites have been in the same ownership.
No, they haven't.
So I take the point, but you can, if it's in the same ownership and they're then subdividing it and bringing in little applications, you can look at it overall and say, actually, no, you're going to have to provide affordable housing.
Once again, you've had 20 properties in the countryside.
Yeah. And that's why when we did the last district plan, that we wanted it to go lower, so 4 units, then we would get something out of it.
Any unit.
And we weren't allowed to. But we used to get so many people coming in, you probably remember this, at 14, because it used to be 15 is our cut-off.
9s now.
Now we can get more out of it. At that time, we had phase 1, 14, phase 2, 14, phase 3, 14, because they knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
And it's wrong.
It's wrong.
It is totally and utterly wrong.
Okay, so can I propose that we
Yes,
vote on this, please?
very much so. Can we have a
propose
seconder? Oh, no, I'll go to Councillor Kennedy. He beat you there, I think. Right, so we've got a proposal, we've got a seconder that this is absolutely approved. Can we have the screen up, please? Green for you approve it, red you don't, and yellow.
Well done, everybody.
Yep, we got 10. Well done. Right, moving on. We haven't got another one to come in, honestly. We're back to the schedule now. Item 12, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2. Due notice which has been given, I have none. So therefore I close the meeting at 7:48. Please remain seated until such time we get it's off. Cheers, it's off. Right.
Well done, Gareth.
That was well done, everybody.